Hey everybody. Hey Batman. Hey Blissful. And it looks like I'm going to have Chris on here with me tonight to talk about three more Robert Englund films. We're going to be talking about Urban Legend, Strangeland, and The Prince and the Surfer. And believe it or not, as many years old as Strangeland is, I had never seen that movie before today. So you will hear my thoughts on that here shortly. Hey, Candace. I was just trying to finish up your message. Didn't quite get it all finished before I had to go live, but I'll finish it up here after the stream is over. Um, the Prince and the Surfer I had never even heard of till I was looking at Robert Englund's filmography, which that's an interesting little film as well. But I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, barring anything happening, um, this is going to be one for the books, folks. I think apples and oranges, talking about Kubrick's version of The Shining versus Mick Garris's miniseries version of The Shining. Hopefully, I can get Uncle Bill and CK and Chris and whoever the heck else wants to come on here and discuss these two films. Uh, we've got enough slots to have 10 people on here. You know, we might break the internet, but if we could get 10 people on here, it'd be pretty cool. Um, Yeah, Blissful. I didn't have any idea how many movies Robert Englund was in either, and that's why I like doing these retrospectives because it allows me to go through somebody's entire catalog of films, whether it's a director or an actor or an actress or whatever. Um, Leslie, you ordered an extra large Jello pit for that live. Okay, evidently we're finally going to have the Jello pit. Um, Batman, you say you was about to say that you received your copy of Into the Pit yesterday, and you noticed some smudges on it. Oh, we're gonna have to get after CK. The merchandise is slipping. It's slipping. did you uh did you put in a complaint, Batman? But so anyway, we've got that coming up tomorrow night. You don't want to miss this because I think this is going to be epic. It's going to be one for the books here because I know unless Uncle Bill has something unexpected, I expect him to be on here trying to force me into saying which do I prefer. So uh, you can surely tune in to see if I answer that question or not. So let me go ahead and add Chris on here real quick. Hey, Chris.
Hey Dana, how's it going?
Better today than yesterday. Much, much, much better today, actually.
Yeah, Candace told me that you weren't having such a great day yesterday. I guess with work and everything, and that's
Hmm.
completely understandable. Um, I've had my bad days at work, and once I'm off, my shift ends. I don't really feel like doing a whole lot, and just other
Yeah.
than just laying around. So I completely get that.
I was just so wiped out. Stuff like that just completely drains me. It's like draining toys batteries or something like that. It just,
Yeah.
just won't go anymore. Um, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started with the first movie on the list, which is Urban Legend. And I meant to go back and rewatch this last night, but I was just so wiped out I didn't get to it. However, I have seen this movie so many times that I could probably talk about it in my sleep, talk about it forwards, backwards, upside down, or sideways, whatever. Uh,
And that copy that you have there, is that a Screen Factory release?
yes, it is.
I I really liked it. I don't think I'd ever seen that cover before. I really liked that cover. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
I
to look
finally
it up.
broke down and got this on Blu-ray. Um,
Super Batman there. It's just Dead Pit turning into Scheme Factory. Uh, just somebody spilled their baby gravy all
her
over
chicken
it.
grease.
Yeah, those were compliments of CK's bodily fluids. Batman nerd.
He was eating some KFC too,
That's
like
right. Yeah,
he was
we'll
packing
go with
it
that.
up. Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says, please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Um, so, Chris, do you want to kick this off since you're my guest tonight and give us your thoughts on Urban Legend?
Well, I absolutely love this movie.
Mm,
I really do. But I consider myself a pretty big fan of like '90s horror anyway. Now, while that's not my favorite decade of horror, '80s is definitely my favorite. But the '90s is where I kind of grew up because I was born like in '86. So majority of my childhood was in the '90s.
mhm.
And so while would watch a lot of the older films in the 80s and 70s, whatever, before, the 90s, and I would enjoy them, I was, experiencing firsthand a new generation of horror in the 90s with films like Urban Legend, like the Scream movies, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty, stuff like that. And this one always stands out to me a lot too, much like how I said Wishmaster did, because it kind of brings in this almost this like entire roster of like classic horror icons. You know, you have Robert Englund in this. You
Mhm.
have Brad Dourif makes an appearance at the beginning of the film.
Yes, he
Uh,
does.
Danielle Harris plays Alicia Witt's roommate at college in this. You know, there's just a lot of different characters to kind of look back at. Oh, that's cool that they added them. And but me like I said, growing up in the '90s, some of this were kind of my introduction. Which I knew who Robert Englund was, I knew Freddie and stuff like that. But as far as like Danielle Harris, I probably knew who she was from watching Halloween 4 and 5 a lot before I ever seen this, but I didn't realize this was her at first because back then when this came out, I wasn't like a walking Wikipedia or anything of all these horror like icons and stuff. Because while I loved horror at that age, I just didn't really know. Like I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now. Um, but yeah, I really love this. The whole like aspect of how like there's this killer. And this is a slasher movie. I look at this as a slasher movie.
Right.
So the killer in this is just kind of like copying all of these urban legends and bringing them to life. And an interesting aspect that I didn't learn about this till later on was that Rebecca Gayheart, who plays in this, is also from Hazard, Kentucky. So
That is cool.
I thought that was really, really neat. And like I knew that I figured that out like years ago. And then I used to work at Walmart in Hazard, and I came into the break room one day, and there she was sitting in the break room with some of the managers of the store. So I guess like she was like friends with them or something because where she was born in that area. She grew up in that area before she moved off and started being an actress. Um, and there's a lot of people in this movie though. Like it's just, that I know from so many other things. Jared Leto's in this.
Yeah.
Joshua Jackson and Robert Englund, Danielle Harris, Brad Dourif, people like that, of course. Alicia Witt is one of the few though that I was not super familiar with her work outside of this. I think I remember seeing her like in one episode of Twin Peaks when she was younger.
Yeah.
Um, and she might have been in a couple other things, but it just seems like a lot. Everyone else in this film, well, the exception of most of them, I knew them from other things before I saw this.
Hmm.
Um, but Yeah, I'll let you go ahead now. That's just a little bit what I wanted to start off with because
Right.
I love this movie.
And I would have to echo Chris's sentiment that I love this movie too. And this movie was before that glut of movies that were similar to this and similar to Scream started coming out. And so it was still fresh. And I was like, wow, I've always been intrigued by urban legends ever since I was a kid. Um, I I in fact have a book back on the bookshelf in me and Steve's bedroom that's on urban legends. It's called Be Afraid, Be Very
Hmm.
Afraid, and it's all about these different horror based urban legends. And we've all heard urban legends, of one sort or another throughout our childhood, our teenage years, even our, young adult years. We have heard about them. I don't think I've ever came across anybody that hasn't heard at least one or two urban legends in their lifetime.
Right.
But I used to love hearing other people tell urban legends. I loved reading them. In fact, me and friends used to get together and, you would tell ghost stories, but you would also tell these urban legends, and then everybody would get their turn telling one. And so that was always a big part of my youth growing
Yeah.
up. And so I think part of the reason I love this, other than it's a fantastic film, like Chris said, it's got a lot of genre people in it. Not the least of who is Robert Englund. We've got all kinds of other people like Brad Dourif and Danielle Harris, and we could go on about that. And Robert Englund has a pretty sizable part in this as Professor Wexler, and he's actually teaching a class on urban legends. And I'm like, that's just perfect. Having Robert England be the professor for a college class on urban legends. That just seemed to fit.
And that introduction to his character in this, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dana,
Oh, no, no, that's
but
fine.
I just had a thought that, like, that when they introduce Robert England and he's teaching the class, um, that's one of the most memorable parts to me in this film because I can remember watching it for the first time, and every time I've watched it since, like I would always wait for that part to come up because it's when they're talking. He's teaching that class about those urban legends, and then um, Joshua Jackson's character Damon is kind of
Mhm,
like being real mouthy. He's like a prankster, and he's just he's trying to seek attention most of the time, and so he's just like kind of like going back and forth with Wexler, Robert England's character, and
mhm,
then he challenges him to come up on to the stage or whatever you want to call it, with the floor where he's teaching, and
mhm.
he gives him a bag of pop rocks and some coke or something like that, and then like so it's just like he's saying it's like that's why it's called an urban legend because it's also like a myth. But then
Yep.
he starts like keeling over, and he's like he's throwing up, and like he's gonna die, and everybody's freaking out. But then it's just a joke the whole time, and for some reason that's the most memorable scene in the whole movie to me. I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah, and too, something else that I enjoyed about this movie is even though it was a modern take on that whole urban legends thing at that time,
Mhm.
they still went back and used the old school urban legends, the
Yeah.
pop rocks and the soda, the killer who kills the boyfriend and hangs him upside down on a tree, and the class ring is scraping back and forth on the top of the car.
Hmm.
The this one makes me cringe, but the dog in the microwave.
I knew you was going to get to that. Now that is a very bothersome scene in the movie because they go into that urban legend and like so that like when I seen that in what was this? This came out what 97, 98. I was probably about 11 years old when this movie came out, and that just really like stuck with me. That scene too, that's
That
another
was probably the most disturbing.
because it's very disturbing, especially because it's revolving around an animal, a dog, just because I love dogs,
Me too.
and just to see that is, I was like, wow, that's something else. That was I hadn't at that point I had not seen anything like that in a horror film.
Right.
To that point, I mean, I've seen some worse stuff now that I've gotten older and seen just hundreds and hundreds of films. Um, but at that time, 11 years old, seeing that,
Oh yeah.
never seen anything like that. It's yeah, it's an experience to say the least.
And also the killer in the back seat.
Yeah.
Near the beginning, you have that whole scene where, you know, I'm going to give something away, guys and gals. So if you haven't seen Urban Legend, you might want to step away.
Yeah, I was going to talk about some stuff too. Anyway, like just that spoils the film. So, like I said, yeah, like Dana said, if you haven't seen Urban Legend, you might want to take a pause from this because we're going to be discussing some things.
But I'm halfway joking about this. But if you haven't seen Urban Legend, what in the world's wrong with you? You need to go watch that movie. Okay. But we're led to believe that Brad Dourif's character of the gas station attendant is the crazy guy that's going to get this chick at the beginning or near the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's kind of acting nervous and he's unkempt and stuff. He looks crazy. I mean, he doesn't look like somebody that you would trust. But as the girl is peeling away from the gas station, he has a stutter, and so he's trying to get out. There's someone in the back seat, and as she pulls out of there, he says, "There's someone in the back seat." He finally gets it out, but unfortunately, it's too late. And the killer rises up and with the axe.
That's
But
one of my favorite things about this film
yeah,
is that it just keeps you guessing through the whole film of who's the killer. Like it'll throw hints here and there. Like, and the first one we see, like you said, is with Brad Dourif's character, the gas station attendant, and you think, like because even the character that the girl that's in the car, I think her name was Michelle in the movie,
hmm
um, like that she gets that right away from him. She gets that vibe from Brad Dourif's character that, oh God, this guy, there's nobody on the phone actually, because he tells her to come into the gas station because he knows something's wrong, but he lies and tells her that her credit card company is on the phone. So when she goes in
yeah,
there, he like locks the door, and then she gets on the phone and nobody's on it, and then he just kind of comes up to her quick and grabs her, and tries to tell her something.
hmm
She's like trying to, she thinks he's trying to kill her, and like I said, that's all throughout the movie. There's little hints like that Robert Englund is the killer.
yeah.
There's hints that the janitor is the killer.
Even Jared Leto was
Yeah,
the
and even
killer.
and there's a lot of different things that like you're kind of like, okay, who is it? Who really is it? But we'll
Mm.
get into that, I
And
guess.
I did not. I will say the first time I watched Urban Legend, I did not guess who the killer was.
Okay,
So,
no, I don't think it.
so they did. They did a very, very good job of keeping you guessing and having a ton of red herrings in
And
this.
if you figured out who the killer was in your first viewing of this, then you're a smarter person than I am because there was really no hints at all or any kind of clues that it was who it was.
hmm Batman, I believe you're right that the girl who gets killed in the car is in High Fidelity. I think she's
Hmm.
the one that comes in. either like in the last quarter of the movie and talks to Rob in the record shop. I think that's Natasha. Is it Natasha Gregson or whatever her name is?
I think so.
Um,
Something like that.
I wanted to read what Candace had here because she's talking about the first time she saw Urban Legend. She
Mhm.
said, "I remember the first time I went to watch Urban Legend. I had gone to the movies with my horror loving aunt. I have a horror loving aunt too, so me and Candace have that in common. The one who introduced me to horror. I remember how much she loved to scare me." And how when we left the theater and she seen a car with its lights off and she flashed her lights at them to see if they'd turn around on us. Me and my friends were terrified.
I'm in. You had every right to be terrified. I would be the same way. Um,
Yes, Natasha Gregson Wagner. Yes, because she is. Um, uh, Shoot. Daggone it. Help me out here, Batman. Who's her mom? Because she's got her dad's last name, or technically, I guess it's her dad, Robert Wagner. Natalie Wood. That's Natalie Wood's daughter.
oh,
Um,
really?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Batman, but I'm pretty sure she's Natalie Wood's daughter.
Um, but yeah, like there's just so much about this. Is like it kind of like you know, I don't want to say it was innovative, but in a way it was as well because we didn't really see a lot of horror films that were focusing on the urban legend stuff.
Hmm.
And for them to just kind of like add so many of the different urban legends to just kind of focusing on one, they have a lot of different. And like I mean, we mentioned the whole pop rocks thing at the beginning. It was a class with Robert Englund that he does with Joshua Jackson's character Damon. Well, one of the kills later in the film, which is the guy that played by Michael Rosenbaum, it was his dog that was in the microwave.
Yeah.
And then right after that, his death happens with the killer pouring pop rocks down his throat and all these like bathroom chemicals and stuff.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad death
Yeah,
for that guy.
wow.
But yeah, I love that they just this movie was they didn't just have one or two urban legends. It was chock full of it. They didn't call this movie Urban Legend for nothing.
And there are, I think, there are at least two sequels to this. There may be three, I'm not sure, but I know there's at least two. Now I've seen the other ones, and they don't live up to the original film.
No, no,
And
they do not.
there's not as many like kind of throwbacks to like actors within the genre in the later films as well. There's a couple here and there, but like not like how the first one was. Kind of, there was just like kind of stuff thrown all throughout the film. You're like, oh, that person's in this. That person's in this.
Right.
Oh, they're covering all of these different. There's a lot of stuff going on in like just the actors in general, like the main cast of this film. It was for the time it was considered star studded
Yeah.
because a lot of these actors like Jared Leto and Michael Rosenbaum and Rebecca Gayheart, they were all kind of like up and coming because Rebecca Gayheart did Scream 2
Yeah.
before she did Urban Legend, and then she went on to do another cult classic in Jawbreaker, and
Yeah.
just a lot of upstarts in this too. Joshua Jackson was known at the time, I believe, for Dawson's Creek. I
Yeah.
believe that came out before Urban Legend. But it's like I said, they had a star-studded cast for this. Now the sequels, not so much, but they're worth checking out still.
Hmm. Wasn't the second one, wasn't that like Bloody Mary or something like that, Chris? Or am
Mm,
I thinking
I
incorrectly?
get them mixed up because Batman Nerd, he mentioned them. He said the sequel's Final Cut, and I don't think this is the correct name, but he says, "Oh, Bloody Mary." Um,
Well, Whichever one is the second one, I saw that, but it's been a long time, and I think that's the one that had Hart Boschner in it,
Mhm.
who was on Terror Train, was on the original Terror Train. He
Oh,
was the
okay.
one that played Doc.
Yeah,
On
now I believe that's Bloody Mary. I believe that's the second one is Bloody Mary, which that's another like urban legend that they mention for like briefly in the first film
yeah,
when they show Alicia Witt and Rebecca Gayhart's character standing in front of like this a boarded up like dorm or some kind of building there on the college campus, and they start playing Bloody Mary there on the steps, and then
yeah.
they start hearing like a voice coming from somewhere, but then it's Joshua Jackson's character that comes up behind them and just messing with them.
And Candace mentioned how she was in love with Joshua Jackson at the time, and she hated Dawson's Creek, but she got a Dawson's Creek shirt just so she could have Joshua Jackson on.
I'm probably in the minority here when it comes like people that are interested in the horror genre, but I really liked the show Dawson's Creek. Um, like the main character, which is played by James Vanderbeek. He's Dawson. He
Mhm.
was an interesting character to me. And that's why I think I got interested in it because he wanted to be a filmmaker. His hero was Steven Spielberg in the show. So Dawson's bedroom had like E.T., Jurassic Park, and Jaws, and all these different like movie posters, and he was like always involved, wanted to be involved in film.
Right.
And that was like that. I mean, there's a lot of like kind of like teenage drama and stuff like that, involved in the show most of the time, but there's a lot of cool stuff. I thought was the show lasted I think like 5 or 6 seasons or something, but yeah, it's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it.
Well, Batman says Final Cut is the second, Bloody Mary
Oh,
is the third
okay.
and final one. Okay. Um,
See, I get them mixed up, man. I
yeah,
don't.
I do too. And but this one is the coup de grace of all of them. If you've never seen an urban legend film, this is the one to go with. And if you can only watch one, it's definitely the one to go with. I always loved the tagline for this movie too, which is it happened to someone who knows someone you know. You're next. That
Mhm.
is one of the most ominous taglines I've ever seen.
And
I've seen other good ones, but
I want to talk about Robert Englund's death scene in this though, because
oh yeah,
we don't see him get killed,
no.
but this is towards the very end of the film because at this point, so it's Alicia Witt, Jared Leto, and Rebecca Gayheart, and they're in this car. It's Jared Leto's car, and they're going down the road because like they're trying to find out what's going on. I don't know if they're trying to like just like contact the police or what it was because I don't think it's like stop at this gas station,
Mhm.
and then they like look in the trunk and then they discover Robert England's body all cut up and sliced
Yeah,
up.
because doesn't his watch go off or something? He's got a
So yeah,
watch
it's
that the
something like that.
alarm
I can't
goes
remember
off.
exactly why they go and look in the trunk, but I know they popped it and he's like in there and
I was thinking there was a smell in Jared Leto's vehicle, and they were suspicious
that
of it.
might have been it. Like I said, it's been a while since I've watched it. I had to go back and kind of see exactly what the reason was, but I just remember them opening that, and at that point they were, well, at least you think they're thinking that
Yeah,
this is the killer, that Wexler was the killer, but then they said like, oh, then it's not Wexler, so who
right.
is it? And and then they're like Alicia Witt and Rebecca Gayhart's like, oh, it's Jared Leto's character Paul.
Mhm.
But if and I warned you guys that I was going to give spoilers, but then it's revealed at the end when like Alicia Witt and Rebecca Gayheart are like running through the woods and they get separated, and
Mhm.
like she somehow ends up in this old house, and when she goes in there, like here's like the collected bodies of all of her friends and all the victims.
That's
Uh,
slasher movie
yeah,
101 right there.
and then we see at first, we're thinking Rebecca Gayhart's character Brenda is a victim as well. She's laying there on this bed, but then like she raises up behind Alicia Witt's character, and it's revealed that Brenda, Rebecca Gayhart's character, is the killer. Um, And you know, I question about bringing this up, but I mean, I guess it's kind of fitting to talk because this is a horror film, and she was the killer in this. But um, she Rebecca Gayheart in real life, um, I mean, not intentionally, but she did kill a child by running them over many years ago. Um,
Yeah, I think I heard about
and
that.
I'm not sure if that was before or after this film. If somebody knows, you can put it in the chat. But I just, it always, once I found out about that, I always wondered, like, if that was before that urban legend came out,
Mhm.
did that mess with her? Or, so, okay, Candace says it was after.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me ask this now because she is also, well, she's not really, because it was an accident, but in Jawbreaker, they kill their friend in the beginning of Jawbreaker,
Mhm.
because her friend. That's why the movie's called Jawbreaker, because their friend chokes on a Jawbreaker. Was that before or after that with the thing that happened with her in real life? But anyway, yeah, like I said, I questioned bringing that up, but the thing is, it's just something people would find out anyway. I believe if they did enough research on her, which um, I don't know. I don't think she was charged or anything because like it wasn't, like it was an accident and it wasn't something she
Right.
intentionally did. But but it just stuff like that just sets in my mind, like when you're an actress and if you're involved in films where there's like you're a killer or there's killings or something, like does that ever like go back in the back of her mind of like what happened to her in reality?
Mhm. Candace does say it was like 3 years after
Okay.
this.
Well, so it's just something I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah, and that was something that I'd forgotten about, but when you brought it up, I remembered hearing about that. Um, Candace says Urban Legend came out in '98, I believe. Jawbreaker, I think the year after the
Okay, so
accident.
the accident was after both of those films. Okay,
Yeah, in 2001, she thinks. So,
but well, that kind of makes sense because it seems like I do remember now reading that after that happened, she pretty much got out of acting.
yeah.
I think she was in something like here or there a few times, but not like consistently. Like at this point, like when Urban Legend and Jawbreaker stuff like that came out, and Scream 2 before Urban Legend, she was consistently acting.
Mhm.
But um, yeah, kind of said I read where she had a terrible time dealing with that. I can only imagine what she had to go. Yeah, I mean that's something nobody ever wants to have to experience,
Mm-mm.
and have to live with that. It really sucks, and I feel bad for her. And I really liked her as an actress. I really liked
Yeah, me too.
stuff. She was very pretty back then in the 90s.
She was very attractive, but she had a unique look. It wasn't just a traditional beauty. I liked the way she looked. Um, Batman says, I remember she was in Nothing to Lose with Martin Lawrence and Tim Robbins.
Yes, she is. She like plays the receptionist at where Tim Robbins works. I love that movie, Batman. That I remember renting that. My dad rented Nothing to Lose back when it came out on video years ago. And you ever heard that song, Dana? It's by a guy named Scatman John. It's just, I'm a scat man. It's like or something like that. It's like
Oh,
a
I think I may have. Yeah.
so that song is in that movie, and so the first time I ever heard that song was in that movie, and I mean I laughed my butt off
I think I
when
had
you're
that
playing it
movie on DVD, but it's been years.
because I thought that song sounded so fun because I never heard anybody like scat. That this is a style of singing they call it scatting.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard it before, and I just thought, as a kid when I saw that, it was hilarious. And it's during the scene where like Tim Robbins has gas on his legs from where like he got it from the gas station, and then a match or something gets thrown down on the ground and it catches, so his legs are on fire and he's like dancing all over the place trying to knock the fire off of his legs. Oh man, it's such a good movie. It's funny.
And Blissful brings up that it's Keith's Goraphobe. It's his birthday today.
Oh,
And
happy birthday,
so
Gorfo.
everybody make sure to wish him a happy birthday. I don't know. Blissful, is that video? Is he having a birthday stream?
Today's my dad's birthday too.
Oh,
Yeah.
can we ask how old your dad is?
Yeah, he is. Let me think here. Let's see. My dad is 69 years old today.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So he
My
was,
mom and dad's is easy to figure because they're 20 years older than me. So,
oh, well, my mom is 30 years older than me. My mom was born in 56. My dad was born in 55.
okay.
So yeah. So next year it will be my dad. Of course, he's turned 69 today. So yeah, of course he's gonna be 70 next year. But if you know my dad, and Candace can account for this, but you would not know my dad is as old as he is.
No, Candace has told me some stories.
My dad, for to be 69 years old, he has a lot of energy still
Mhm.
in him. He gets around sometimes better than what I do. Um, I mean, my dad's really taken care of himself health wise for
Mhm.
years and years. So
Yeah, I won't tell the story because I would like Candace to tell it, or maybe Chris and Candace to tell it. But the the story about when he was on y'all's roof.
oh well, yeah, I can tell that real briefly. Like, I mean, it's not a big like long and interesting story or anything.
If
It's
he
just
had gotten hurt bad, I wouldn't have laughed. But the way Candace was telling it,
well, yeah. So, the first house that me and Candace ever lived in when we got married, was her great grandmother's house, I believe, and so like they gave the house to us when we got married, and but it had some issues with the roof. We were getting some leaks in or where our bedroom was in the house, and I was like, I don't know anything about this stuff. We need to get somebody to fix it. So I told my dad about it. And my dad was like, "Oh, I'll come look at it, bub." And so my dad, he has no fear when it comes to like heights or getting on top of houses. That's something I cannot do. I can't deal with heights. But anyway, he got up there and was working on it and everything. And I was in the house with Candace. And, I thought I'd heard like a noise, like a crash or something out on the side of the house, but I wasn't sure. And I said, "Well, I'm gonna go outside and check on Dad, see if he's doing okay, if he needs anything." So where our house was set up, I came out we had this sunroom which would lead to this door to go to the outside. So I came out that door, then turn right. I go out our gate, walk around the front of our house, and then on the other side. Um, and I was like looking around for Dad, and I didn't see him. I didn't see him on the roof or anything. And I walked, and there was this old truck parked on the side of our house, on the other side where I walked to, and I heard like a noise coming from it, and it just going, oh, 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 and I'm like, what the hell is that? And it was my dad. My dad had fell off the roof into the back of this truck. It was like, and the bed of that truck was like full of like crushed pop cans and all this other stuff. And then I'm like, oh God, I was like, Dad, are you all right? And he was like trying to get up and like pull himself out of that bed of the truck. And then there's the house next to us was full of like these meth head people, and they were always doing like God knows what over there. They stole my wallet one time, but that's another story. Um, but this lady that lived there comes out and she looks at me and she looks back over at my dad and then looks back at me again and says, "Is he all right?"
Oh God.
I said, "I hope so." But so I helped Dad back into the house, and like he had like tore his pant legs, and I mean he was like and everything. He was getting. I mean, to just fell off the house to the back of a truck. He got up pretty quick and was getting around all right. But I'm telling you, if that was me though, I'd probably be.
Somebody'd have to take me to the hospital if that happened to me now.
It was just. I mean, there's more to it, but you know, like I'm sure Candace don't want me to share everything, but there's it was it was something else for sure.
Um, let's see. The mayor's in here. He says, "I feel you, Chris. I can't take heights either."
Mm-mm. Tell you something that happened to me once, and you know I can get on like roller coasters and stuff at
Mhm.
amusement parks. You know that don't really scare me, but it's just you know because I really like that thrill as far as like when you look at it, like the heights thing with that.
Mhm.
But we went Kings Island once. It was me, Candace, Noah, and our nephew Raiden. And there's this ride where like it's all in a circle, and you sit in these seats, and it
Mhm.
takes you up way in the sky above the park.
And
And
does it drop you?
no, it spins around. So like
Oh.
the little cart that you're sitting in, like the faster it spins, the more you go out this way.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And so here's the thing with that. My like seat was not buckled in properly.
Oh my
And
god.
I had to hold the thing down with all the, strength that I had because I could have fell out of that and
Oh
died.
my gosh.
And I said, and once it was over, I was like, I was about to have a panic attack, and I said, I'll never get on anything like that again in my life.
Uh-huh. I think that would do me in on getting on stuff like that. Thankfully, I've never had that happen, but I can tell a funny story about
Mhm.
heights. Um, I did not know that Steve was scared of heights. Heights never really has bothered me that much. Now, I don't want to
Mhm.
be hanging off the side of a bridge or something like that, but as far as rides go or anything like that, it gives me a rush is what it does for me. But anyway, we went to Kentucky Kingdom a few years back, and we got on one of those things that raises you up really high where you can see the parking lot and everything, and then drops you.
Yeah.
And so we got on there, and me and Steve, of course, were sitting by each other. They buckled us in and all that. And then it started raising up, and it got higher and higher and higher. And we we were sitting up there right before it dropped. And Steve looked at me and he said, "I guess this is not a good time to tell you I'm afraid of heights." I said, "What?" I looked at him, and about that time, it let go and just dropped us. And I yelled out and stuff, but it was like I said, I get a rush from it.
Right. Yeah. Me too.
But if I wasn't buckled in, I'd be like, "Get me the
Yeah.
hell
That
off of
that
this
that's the
thing."
only time that I've ever like been on a ride like that, and they did. There was like no extreme precautions by the staff that was running the rides to like
Mhm.
make sure that I was buckled in properly.
Yeah, that's
And I was like really upset over that too because I was like, you know, can you imagine like what? I mean, not just my family, let alone my family, but like the park would have had to all the stuff they had to deal with if something like that happened. I would have fell
oh my
out.
gosh, yes, because there've been, incidents at amusement parks where the ride that me and Steve were on, or a similar ride to what me and Steve were on, somebody got their legs cut off.
Oh my goodness.
And, people have gotten decapitated on rides and stuff like that. How horrifying. It almost makes you never want to get on a ride
And
again.
it's odd that all that stuff got brought up. We start talking about like amusement park stuff like that because I was mentioning when we were talking about urban legend, we were talking about all these movies that were coming out in the '90s and stuff like that, like in that type of new generation of horror. And even though this didn't happen in the original, but Final Destination is another like series kind of part of all that. And in Final Destination 3, I believe it's the third one, is when it kind of starts off with the roller coaster
Mhm.
and all that, and that's scary. There's a lot of stuff in those Final Destination films that kind of like that can adapt to real life and it may like the I think it's in the first film. It's like when the log truck and all the logs fall,
Mhm.
and so like every time like we get behind a log truck on the road or something, I'm like, Candace, get over the side of it, get on the other side of it. So it freaks
Well,
me out.
you probably don't need to if you haven't seen it, but the beginning of Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a horrific. Have you seen that?
Yeah, Joe Bob played it one night on Last Drive.
That horrific car crash where that
Hmm.
log comes into the vehicle. It's like,
Yeah,
holy
and that predates Final Destination. So that's another thing that kind of made me wonder when I saw that because I saw Final Destination before I seen Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker.
crap.
But it kind of makes you wonder, like, did that movie inspire that scene in Final Destination?
Could have. There's another similar scene in the movie Macabre where the woman's lover gets pretty much decapitated
Right.
in a similar way. Now, Candace, remind me never to be in an elevator with you. She says she got stuck in an elevator 3 times. I
Mhm.
I would be climbing the walls. I am so claustrophobic. If I got stuck in an elevator, I think I would die or lose my mind or something if I could not get out. And there have been people stuck in elevators for hours. I know, but
I guess we should probably give our ratings on Urban Legend, shouldn't we?
yeah. Well, before we do that, I want to
Oh,
hear Chris's thoughts on Robert Englund's performance as a whole in Urban Legend.
well, I really like it. It just, but he plays a lot of when he plays a serious character. He kind of plays that the same way in a lot of films. Not every single one, but like this one is the way his character is portrayed in Urban Legend is kind of a good comparison to his character in Wishmaster.
Hmm.
While they're not like, but like, well, his character in Wishmaster was just like this rich, like collector of European like sculptures and stuff like that. Um, but at the same time, that kind of can relate to he's this college professor in Urban Legend. He plays a much more serious role, but I really like how like they're with this character in Urban Legend, um, it's it's as if like he was that you were led to believe that he was the killer at many times throughout the film, and I thought that was a really neat concept for his character, at least because, you know, everything before that, especially with the Nightmare films, we know he's the killer. We know Freddy
Right.
is the killer. But seeing Robert Englund in kind of opposite role of that, like where, well, he could be the killer in this, but we don't know yet. And but I thought he did a fantastic job.
And
No matter what role he's in, there's a lot of charisma
mhm.
behind his characters,
Oh, definitely.
and they're believable. They're not something to where you're like, well, he can't act. He's not doing a good job in his role. No, it's always like, what he's very believable. Even in his times as Freddy Krueger,
Right.
it's believable to an extent, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I echo a lot of that, Chris, because I just absolutely love him in the role of Professor Wexler. And I feel like, and y'all feel free to disagree with me, if, including Chris, but I just felt like the Wexler role was a unique role for Robert Englund. I don't feel like he had played a role exactly like that, and he'd had a lot of roles up until this point too. Now, would you agree or disagree with that,
I,
Chris?
I agree with you on that. Like I said, there are some roles that he done previously that can be as comparison, but when you the contrast of that is, it's still a unique character. It maybe seems similar to other previous serious roles that he's done, um, to where and but at the same time, it's like I said, it's very unique because of just the whole how the story plays out with him being involved.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I really really enjoyed that portrayal that he did.
So, um, do you want to give your rating first, Chris, or do you want me to give mine?
Yeah, I can. Well, like I said, I as much as I talk up this film, I recommend it to anybody that hasn't seen it. I love it. I think it's one of the more unique horror films of the '90s. Um, I still would have to give it just a 4 because,
Okay.
much like how I am like Candace, I reserve my favorite films, for that 5 rating. But 4 is still good. If I could, I'd give it a 4.5.
I promise, guys and gals, I'm gonna get that half as as soon as I can. Um, so I think that's fair. And as y'all know how I am, I'm gonna bump it up just a little bit to a 5 because not only is Robert Englund's performance fantastic in this, but it to me it's one of my favorite films of that bunch of films that came out in that certain time period in the 90s. And it seemed like after Urban Legend came out, a whole bunch of them started coming out. And you know what happens when a whole bunch of them, movies that are similar, come out? There's going to be a lot of bad ones. That's what usually
Hmm.
happens. So this one was early enough that the shiny newness and the shiny new car look hadn't worn off yet at this point. Now you go a few 15 films down the line and you're going to be saying, well, the car's starting to rust now. It's not as shiny now, it's got dirt on it or whatever. But right at this point in time, it was shiny and new. Everybody was like, wow, this movie's. I haven't talked to anybody that said Urban Legend was a bad movie. Um,
Um, Dana, is my sound too loud? Does it sound too loud on your end or?
no, but I've got my volume turned down on my speakers a little bit. So if somebody had their speakers really pumped, I mean, it might be.
I just because Candace messaged me just and said turn your volume down a bit. There's a bit of feedback. I can't tell from my end, but
Mhm.
if there's my sound, just let me know or something, and I'll try to see if I can fix it. But yeah, like there was this we were talking about like how there was like a bunch of films that kind of came out after this, kind of like there's going to be some bad films,
Mhm.
kind of that are similar. Um, it makes me that when you said that, I thought of a couple other films that came out. I believe they came out in the late '90s, called The Fear. And have you ever seen? There's one. The one's just called The Fear, and then the second one's called The Fear Halloween Night.
Yeah, I think I have, but it's been so long, Chris, that I can't remember a
Yeah,
lot about it.
I love those movies, and Wes Craven actually has a cameo in the first one.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just basically, if you nobody's ever seen those movies, it's about there's this like wooden mannequin named Morty in it, and
Mm.
it was like and the one guy in the movie, like his family's had Morty for like generations, and basically what it's used as kind of like a where you express your fear, and like he's the mannequin or some kind of like legend or something they believe in, like where the he's supposed to absorb that fear and take it away from you. But the whole movie kind of is based around like of all the deaths in the film are based on that particular person's fear.
Mm.
Um, and if you've never seen them, I recommend checking those out. I just had that thought because you were talking about like all those films kind of similar coming out
Right.
afterwards, and which those are some people would consider those bad films, but I love them. I really liked them. I rented them a lot as a kid. So
Right. Well, you like what you like. I think I remember Steve not much caring for the first one. I don't know if we've seen the second one, but I was pretty sure we had watched the
the
first one.
the fear movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually like the second one better than I do like the first one. But I like them both. But yeah, the second one, I was more drawn to that one.
Right. So, um, I know Batman remembered, or I saw that he put, I can't wait for Hatchet. That's going to be in about 3 more weeks. I'll be covering Hatchet, Batman, and it'll be the first time I've watched Hatchet in many, many years.
That's another series I really like. I know that the Dead Pit Boys are kind of hard on those films, but I really like those films. I really like the Hatchet. I like just because it's kind of you got that backwoods
Mm,
southern feel to it, and
right.
I'm I'm kind of drawn to those type of films. Or like we watched Mother's Day the other day. It's kind of got like a backwoods
Yeah.
southern feel to it, even though we never could figure out where those people were actually from. But but I don't know. There's something about that whole like subgenre of like redneck horror, I guess you can call it, or
Yeah,
something.
you could definitely call it that. Um, but I guess we'll move along to Strangeland, which, like I said earlier, Strangeland, this was the first time I had ever watched it, and Steve downloaded it for me. That's all I'm going to say, um, so that I could watch it today.
FBI's want to break in your room any minute, Dana.
I know we're going to get raided. Um, Candace does say, I remember seeing the VHS cover for The Fear when I was a kid. I thought it was Robin Williams.
Hmm.
Um,
That's right. She's
well,
told me that before.
mm, Mayor, I'll try to see if I can get CK and UB on the Hatchet live stream. Sometimes I can get them, sometimes they're busy, but I'll certainly see if I can do that. Um, but I always I didn't just absolutely love Dee Snider and his music, but I didn't think it was bad either. I had seen some videos and heard some of Dee Snider's songs and stuff. He's not a bad um, performer at all. It's just I guess he wasn't one that I concentrated on a whole lot growing up.
Yeah, he's a radio DJ nowadays, and I
Mhm.
feel like that was what he was made to do. I mean, I like Twisted Sister and everything. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, but he has like a really good voice for radio,
Yes, he does have a radio voice.
and he does a really good job with hosting those radio shows that he does. But Yeah, you know, I've only seen this movie once, and that was a long time ago. But I didn't hate it.
Mm.
But it was also not one that I would probably want to rewatch a lot in the future.
Well, I'll go along the kind of the same lines with that. I have a piercing. I don't have piercings like Dee Snider's Captain Howdy character, but I do have a piercing, and I respect people's right to have piercings. But I was never that into the piercings. And if you've seen Strangeland, you know exactly what we're talking about here when we say piercing. He's got some huge piercings on his face. Um, he's got, I guess that's a tattoo supposedly on his
He
face.
was heavily into body modification, that character, and also he one of his hobbies was what they call, I guess, suspension, is when they put like the hooks in his back and he's like just kind of hanging from the hook. So
Yeah.
he was really like that character, Captain Howdy. Um, was just a big like body modification guy, like, but also at the same time, even just because you're into body modification doesn't make you a creep or weird or
Right,
anything.
exactly.
But Captain Howdy he was a weirdo.
He was a
uh,
weirdo.
and that's something. Even though, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of this movie. Um, it brings a reality aspect to it, though. It kind of puts stuff in the back of your mind, like, oh, that could really happen. Like, especially the whole like chat rooms online stuff, because that was
Oh my
when,
gosh.
when that movie came out. That was something that was very new to the world. Was like these online chat rooms and stuff. So it
And
was
that's
expressed.
terrifying,
Yeah,
that thought of that somebody that's that sick in the head could lure young girls to, with promises of having a party. And then they
and
end up,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was just saying they end up in his house and basically he
Yeah,
tortures them, is what he does.
yeah, and it's expressed, early on through this film, like the dangers of that happening, like, so I feel like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the real world when it comes to people like meeting up online and everything. And some people, unfortunately, have ended up in really bad situations, and some people have even got killed. Uh, there's a lot of stuff, like child predators and stuff out there. And,
Yes.
if you watch anything with like Chris Hansen, that kind of stuff, like, all of that stuff is very real. Um, and so you could almost say that this would, this is a film that all parents should have watched back in the day to to
Oh,
to,
definitely.
to see the dangers of, and because I see a lot of stuff, kind of focused on the newer generation, like that kind of worries me about like what Noah my son Noah is going to be getting into, or what he's already doing, like with these VR headsets. Because I hear him talking to people all the time, playing games on this VR headset. I'm just always telling, like, don't give too much information about yourself. Don't tell anybody like where you live, and
Right.
and so forth. Um, and but that is the very like scary thing about this film, though, is that because that's something that could happen in real life. um but you can go ahead now. I'll talk a bit more in a bit.
Um, but so basically, in Strangeland, you have the character of Captain Howdy, played by Dee Snider, um, who, like Chris said, is really, really into body modification and extreme body modification. But he's also got a very sick side where he likes to kidnap young girls and he lures them in through internet chat rooms by posing as a teenager or maybe a 20 something
Right.
young man. Um, and then when the girls get lured to his house, basically it's a torture chamber. is what it is. And he ends up sewing their mouths shut. It looks like, if anybody's ever seen the cover art for Mute Witness, you will see a similar
Yep.
uh, look to what he's doing to these girls. And he basically he kidnaps a detective's daughter and puts her in something that looks like a gigantic bird cage, sews her mouth shut. She's completely naked. And um, I like the way this movie was set up too, because you have the girl getting kidnapped and her friend ends up dying of a heart attack
Hmm.
because she was basically tortured so much and she had a congenital heart defect that caused her to have a heart attack.
Yeah, and
Um,
I like to point out real quick while we're on the subject of that the main character play here is Linda Cardellini, and
mhm,
I'm a big fan of hers. She was Lindsay from Freaks and Geeks. She played Velma in the Scooby Doo live action films. She's even a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, where she plays Hawkeye's wife in a couple of the
that's
films.
right. Hmm.
Um, but just big fan of her, I always have been. And I thought she was awesome in this movie.
Hmm. I agree. Hey, Ice Buoy, it's good to see you again. Um, but so the way that this movie is set up is, I knew the movie wasn't over, but basically the detective finds his daughter early on. He finds Captain Howdy's torture chamber
Yeah.
and he's able to rescue his daughter. And it's not over because that's too early in the film. And we're about, I don't know, what would you say, Chris, about 40, 45 minutes in?
About that is that when he gets captured and they put him in the psychiatric hospital. Yeah, that's probably I would say about 45 minutes somewhere around there. About halfway, I guess, of the film.
Yeah, because this is not a very long movie. I'll say that too. It's only about an hour and 26 minutes long. And the movie part of it's maybe an hour 22, hour 23 before it goes to the credits. Um, so yeah, like Chris said, they capture Captain Howdy and we find out his real name and he's put into a psychiatric clinic, hospital,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. And it's so weird seeing Dee Snider like that without any makeup on, without any crazy hair, or, even the body modification stuff when he, was all decorated up or
And
whatever.
what was? Do you remember what his real name was? Like, because when he comes back, when they release him, like he's just going by that name, and he's wearing like
Isn't
the
it
he's got.
Carlton
I
something?
thought it was like Carl something. I was going to look it up here and see. I thought like Carl Struthers or something. I don't know. I can't
Maybe
remember.
Candace can help us out here because I know
Let's
she.
see.
But
Uh,
while Chris is looking that up, I'll just talk about it a little more. So I think me and Candace had talked about this actually, doing voice messages back and forth. And Candace, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Where I think Candace had mentioned that the tables get sort of turned, and the aggressor becomes the victim for a short period of time in the film, and the townspeople become the aggressors.
yeah.
Be- because you had the whole scene. This is when Robert Englund shows up, or about the time that Robert Englund shows up. Because I kept saying, when's Robert Englund going to show up?" Carlton Hendricks, Candace says, is.
Yeah. I was going to mention. I
You
was
had
just
it
letting you.
too.
I looked it up, but I was just letting you talk about what you were talking about. But yeah, it's Carlton Hendricks, and he has like his hair pulled back in a ponytail. He's wearing like the cardigans, which I did read something about that Dee Snider hated dressing up as that character because he said something about the cardigans that he wore in it really irritated him.
Well, I could understand that. Some people's skin is just sensitive
Yeah,
to certain materials. And it was so odd to see Dee Snider looking like that. I just gotta express that again. But his eyes are downcast in those few scenes. He doesn't really look at anybody. He seems to be a fragile, broken man at that point. And when you see Robert Englund's character of Jack, and you're like, oh no, he's one of these like redneck neighborhood dudes that's gonna, get a whole lynch mob together, and that's exactly what he does.
yeah, and it's funny that that's in there because it's almost like a role reversal.
Mhm.
Because that's the same thing that happened with Freddy Krueger. Is that he's kind of assembling this mob, to take down Captain Howdy's. Much like the parents of Elm Street came together to take down Freddy Krueger. There's a lot of like stuff in this movie, like not outside of that too, like that are inspirations from other horror films. But there's actually another Nightmare on Elm Street reference in
There
this
is.
where like he gets up and he says something like "What a rush,"
Yeah.
which is what Freddy says in Dream Warriors when he's having it's the nightmare sequence with I think is it Taryn? It's Jennifer
Yeah,
Rubin.
Jennifer Rubin's character, yeah.
I think Taryn was her name, and because he has like the glove that has like the syringes
Yeah.
instead of the regular blades, and like he's like, oh, what a rush.
So,
Um, and there was another something I remembered
yeah,
about.
well, one thing, and if you haven't seen Strangeland and you don't want me to give this away, you might want to step away. Towards the end of the film, I don't know if if this is what Chris was going to talk about or not, but the character of Captain Howdy or Carlton is burned, and
Uh,
that was a Nightmare on Elm Street reference for me.
yep. Yeah, there's a lot in it, and I remember what I was going to say. Now it was the name itself, Captain Howdy, is an Exorcist reference.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff here, which if I'm not mistaken, Dee Snider wrote the story for this,
I think he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
and he was. I knew he was already a big horror fan anyway, so I mean, I think it was kind of obvious as why all that stuff was kind of thrown into the story because he was inspired by other horror films, and to help make his own. And there was supposed to have been a sequel to this, but it never got made. But they did release a comic book, Strangeland comic book series, which is a prequel to this film. So in the comic book, you kind of get a more of a backstory on Carlton Hendricks and the Captain Howdy character.
And Candace does say the Nightmare on Elm Street influence in Strangeland is definitely
Yeah, there's a
noticeable. Yeah, I
lot. There's a
agree.
lot, and I think a lot of that is why he included Robert Englund.
And the thing about the nightmares now, Captain Howdy or Carlton is not entering her nightmares the way Freddy Krueger does.
Right.
But there's a scene after she gets away from him the first time around. So keep in mind, folks, she gets kidnapped more than once by him. It's like, oh my God, how much more can this poor girl take from this guy? But after she's kidnapped and gets away the first time, she has a terrible nightmare and she wakes up in a cold sweat screaming for her dad. Her dad comes in there and tells her it's going to be okay and all that. So that trauma of something bad happening, the trauma of a nightmare, that is very reminiscent of a Nightmare on Elm Street as well.
Um. Yeah, and something else I wanted to mention about this film because I pulled up the soundtrack list
Mm-hmm.
For this movie. And it's something I've always noticed anyway, with like when a musician is involved in a film as an actor, there's going to be a lot of like different notable music in those types of films. And this one, there's a whole list of excuse me. There's like, Dee Snider has his, and Twisted Sister has music in this. Pantera, Megadeth, Marilyn Manson, Kid Rock, System of a Down, just to name a few. There looks like there's 18 songs all together on the soundtrack. But yeah, they had a large amount of like really well known bands and musicians' music throughout this movie.
And Candace says, yeah, he wrote it. The movie is based off of a Twisted Sister song,
Mm-hmm.
Horror Teria, the beginning.
Horror.
Yeah. Okay. A, Captain Howdy. B, Street Justice. So,
Yeah,
see, Candace is really well versed in.
yeah, that's true. I remember Candace actually was the one that told me about that. And I went up and looked some further into it about it being based off, like the whole like town and everything is based off of that song that they wrote. And funny that reminds me, there's a part in Strangeland where there's like all the mob is like standing, they got all these signs and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's one person in the crowd with a sign that says, "We're not going to take it," which is the name of a Twisted Sister song.
Yes, it is. You're right. Um, but let's focus on a little bit on Robert Englund's character of Jack, who he does not show up until after Carlton is released from the mental health facility, and you see Robert Englund in the back. Robert Englund is unmistakable. Of course, I was like, well, there's Robert Englund. I was waiting for him. I kept, I thought, where are they going to put him in this film? Is he going to be a doctor? Is he going to be a cop? What's he going to be? And he turns out to be one of the neighborhood townspeople who you when you get your first really good look at him, you're like, oh no, you know, because he's got this kind of smarmy, kind of greasy feel to him. He's not, he's not a good character. And this one blonde woman, um, who talks about being a Christian and stuff, but she don't act very Christian like. Um, and Chris probably knows which she was in that mob of people outside
Mhm.
Carlton's house. And you almost feel sorry for Carlton when he comes out of the house and kind of hangs his head and says that he's sorry. Um, because it almost makes you feel like he is sorry for what he did. Um, and then they do these awful things to him, and he goes right back to being Captain Howdy again and kidnapping young people. And not only that, but I got to mention this scene. So Robert Englund in his underwear, and I don't know if it was a tank top or just a t-shirt. I'm trying to remember. Sitting in cowboy boots. So just imagine Robert Englund in his underwear, a t-shirt, and cowboy boots, sitting there watching. It was suspect what he was watching. If anybody remembers what he was watching in that scene, it's like an older man like taking advantage of a young girl, and it was like getting him off to watch it. And it's like, dude, you're a sicko too. I mean,
Well, in that scene right there that you're talking about, I kind of forgot about that until you just mentioned that. But 'cause like I said, I've only seen this movie once, and it was a long time ago. But that right there in itself is another inspiration from a horror film before it, if you think about it. and in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Exactly. That's what was coming into my
When
brain.
Tom Towles is sitting there and he keeps wanting to watch the video over and over where they kill the one girl on and they because they recorded it. That always to me felt like that's where they drew inspiration from for that scene with Robert Englund and Strangeland. But I could be wrong. I don't know. It just seems similar.
Well, when you was starting to talk about it, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer was the first thing that popped into my
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
And if you guys and gals, just going to take a little side trip here. If you've never seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, don't watch it when you're depressed, folks.
No,
Do
no.
not watch it. This movie is so dark. I don't like to watch it that often, but when I do watch it, I like to watch it when it's bright and sunny outside. I don't like to be watching it at night. I don't like to watch it when I'm depressed because people, if you're depressed and you start out watching that thing, you'll be, and I ain't kidding, you'll be close to being suicidal by the end of it.
Yeah,
So
the
be,
acting in I mean, it is like top notch. With I mean, it feel a lot of the stuff just it's very believable because it's stuff that again, like I mentioned before, stuff that could really happen.
yes.
And that's always to me that's the scariest horror films out there is when it's based off stuff that could actually happen in real life.
And
Uh,
the serial killer Henry Lee Lucas is who they actually
right.
base the Henry character on.
But but if you've seen that film, you know how terrible the character of Henry, of Michael Rooker's character, and um, and Tom Towles, like they're
Yeah,
horrible, horrible people in that film. But and I feel like lucky that I got to meet both of those guys. With Michael Rooker, is still around. He still does conventions, but Tom Towles unfortunately did pass away several years ago. So was lucky enough to. I actually got a photo. It's of this scene that I was referring to, where they're on the couch watching the video. So I have an 8x10 shot of that I had both Michael Rooker and Tom Towles sign.
hmm
Um, and Tom Towles was like one of the coolest guys ever that did these conventions. He was so nice, and he was actually, when I met him, he was supposed to left to go to a panel.
ah,
Um, and I think because it was like a panel for House of a Thousand Corpses panel, if I'm not mistaken. But he actually was late for that panel because he was taking his time and like tell me all these stories about working on Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer,
hmm
and he was just so like pleased that I talked to him about that because he said up until that point when I came and talked to him, he was just had questions all weekend about Night of the Living Dead 1990
yeah,
remake or House of a Thousand Corpses. He said didn't have really a whole lot of people coming up to him talking about Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, but telling you that's probably if you're looking at films that are like based off true stories or
hmm
on serial killers, that's probably my favorite one out of all. And if you've not seen it, you're really missing out because it's really like, um, you know, disturbing in a lot of ways.
very very disturbing. But I do agree with Candace. It's very dark, but it's one of Michael Rooker's best.
I
He's
mean,
perfect in that.
it's so well made. I mean, everything is about it is just kind of like, and I've been comparing this to a lot here, like because I've been ever since I watched Blowout. Um, I've been really getting deep into Brian De Palma's films again,
Yeah.
and this, if you told me if I didn't know it in already, but if you told me that Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer was a Brian De Palma film, I'd believe you because it really has that feeling. It
Yeah.
has that sense of like that same type of filmmaking.
hmm
Um, but I don't want to get off too far track. I get
That's
excited when I talk
okay.
about that movie because I really love it.
Uh-huh. That's okay. We can take side trips here and there. So, um, but so there's one big scene that kind of it's still sticking with me of Robert Englund looking like that. Just imagine that. And he's watching what I would say is an inappropriate or suspect video.
Hmm.
And he wants his woman to, I guess he wants her to act like she's dying, which is weird too. But what he doesn't realize till she gets right up next to him is that she is dying because Captain Howdy has taken her out. He's like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" Because he said, "You can stop all that shit. Let's just get down to business." And she can't because she's in the process of dying. And then he kidnaps Jack, Robert Englund's character, and strips him naked. You don't see any, naughty bits on Robert Englund. I don't think Robert Englund would want people to see that. But clearly he's supposed to be naked. And not only has Captain Howdy sewn his mouth shut, he's sewn his eyes shut.
Yeah.
So the first thing I thought of when I saw that was how he looked on Stranger Things.
Ah,
That was the first thing that
that's
popped into my
true. I didn't think about that, but you're right.
mind. He was younger, of course.
Yeah,
He wasn't as old as he was on Stranger Things, but still, same effect, um, pretty much. Um,
which that's what that whole series of Stranger Things is one big homage to the horror genre and
yes,
sci-fi and
in the
just 80s,
80s.
80s movies in general.
So, but he doesn't take Robert Englund out. Robert Englund's character does not die, as far as we know,
Yeah.
because, and I'm laughing because this is funny. Um, when the detective rescues his daughter again and rescues some of the other people, there is a scene. They've got Robert Englund all wrapped up, and he's on a stretcher, and they're putting him in the ambulance, and he's going like that because he. I don't know. I think his eyes are still sewed up.
Yeah, and what I got from that when I watched that was that he Captain Howdy left him like that because he didn't want to give him that satisfaction of dying. He wanted to just keep him alive and to
Torture.
be tortured for the
Mm.
rest of his life and basically just living miserably. I guess you could say that's what I took from that.
Now, I got to ask you this, Chris. I got to ask you your thoughts on this. So, when the lynch mob gets Carlton,
Mm-hmm.
did you notice that the pills that he was taking fell out of his pocket or fell out of his hand and the car runs over them? And the detective sees the lynch mob taking off with Carlton and he doesn't do anything. But do you think that what made him ultimately go back to being Captain Howdy again
By
was
not
that he
having his
was not
medicine.
on his medication? Because they zoom in on that bottle of.
Well, it can be looked at many different ways, and that's one of them.
Mhm.
And then another is just you know, it's like Ted Bundy or some other type of serial killer that where they have this facade to where they want to fool the general public of like
Yeah.
that they've changed or they're not doing these terrible things,
Mhm.
but uh, deep within, like his own like privacy and everything, what he does in his own personal life is just what he knows
Mhm.
but nobody else knows. So he could not change at all. But give me 1 second. I think I locked Candace out, so I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Um, guys, I'm going to step away just 1 second and grab me a donut because I need something. And I hate to for both of us to leave, but I really got to grab something. So while I'm waiting for Chris to come back, I'm sorry, I'm not doing any cocaine or anything. These are powdered donuts. Um,
Sure, Dana. That's what they all
yeah, I'm
say.
gonna. Sorry. So, had you locked Candace out? Is that what happened?
Well, I thought I'd unlocked the door before I came because she told me to unlock the door. So while I was doing the stream, she could come on in. But apparently, I must have not because we have like 3 latches on our door, and I must have not have done them all. So
That's okay. So let's. I think we've talked a little bit about Robert Englund's performance in this, but before we give our rating for Strangeland, Chris, what's your take on Robert Englund's performance in this?
oh man, this is probably the weirdest performance I've ever seen from Robert Englund. As far as like, it has a very uneasy feeling about his character, and that's even over Freddy Krueger. I mean, Freddy was like creepy and scary and stuff to me, but never. It's always like, well, Freddy's not real. Freddy's just that couldn't happen to where that there's some kind of guy like that. But when I go back to what I was saying earlier, when it brings in that reality aspect to films,
Yes.
of like, that's something that somebody could really be like, there are real creeps like that out in this world. Not just Robert Englund, but Dee Snider's character as well. Just or when I was talking about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, guys like that, they exist. We may see people like that every day, but never know that they have some kind of deep, dark, secret, hidden, and going on in their own personal lives, and that's very scary to me.
It's frightening to me too. I mean, in fact, it's terrifying to me if I sit and think about it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And TJ, yes, a power or protein bar would have been healthier, but I don't think it's going to give me enough sugar. I needed some actual
Listen,
sugar.
Dana's got to have her sugar intake on like a very high level of sugar intake every single day. People, you got TJ, that. That's why she's.
Only if my blood sugar gets low. Now I don't want
I would love to see Dana's like pantry stock of Mountain Dew. I, I bet she's got this stocked to the brim.
Steve could tell y'all all about that. Um, he says I buy way too much Mountain Dew, way yonder too much Mountain Dew.
That's something I've never drank. I've never been a big fan of drinking like regular Mountain Dew, but I love Code Red Mountain Dew.
See, Steve likes Code Red, and he likes Baja Blast.
Yes, I like Baja Blast too.
But he doesn't like regular Mountain Dew either.
Candace bought one the other day. I didn't get to try it. Her and Noah was drinking it. It was called Purple Thunder Mountain Dew.
I'm wanting to try that.
I have no idea what it tastes like because I've not had it. But I would say Code Red. Oh, I like the orange one too. I think it's called Live Wire.
Yeah, I think Steve may have drank that too. And Voltage, there's Voltage. There's a ton of different offshoots of Mountain Dew. But yeah, I'll echo Chris on the Robert Englund again plays his character so well. And he and anybody that has seen Robert Englund do interviews or has met Robert Englund, hey Candace,
hi Dana,
knows that Robert Englund is not that type of person. He's a nice person. He's not this slimy, greasy dude that gets his jollies by watching the type of material that he was watching on this movie. But that just goes to show what a great actor he is, that he can play all these different characters. You know, he can be funny. He can be, now people might laugh at me, but Robert Englund could very well play a leading man. And here's why. To me, Robert Englund is got charm. When he's not playing these really evil characters like Freddy Krueger or something like that, um, he has a charm, a charisma. He's funny. When he does the interviews, he's very, very funny. Um, and so I can see why the two lucky ladies that he was married to, his first wife and now the wife he's got now, Nancy, why they fell in love with him, because it would be very easy to do so. Um, Tell Steve to go choke on his dry ass cereal. Just kidding. Oh man, yeah. Steve's never gonna live down the dry cereal.
So what kind of dry cereal is he eating? I must have missed
He
something.
hasn't ate any cereal of any kind unless you count hot cereal. Like, okay, so let me tell you this. I think this is so weird. He won't have regular cereal with milk, but the water he puts in his instant oatmeal, you guys, it's like he leaves it so dry. He doesn't hardly put any water in there. I'm like, Steve, what are you doing? This is like eating grass and weeds from a field. I mean, what in the heck are you doing?
Whenever I make oatmeal, like we'll get those boxes of like the instant oatmeal, like Quaker Oats makes it or something. And I'll get like my favorite is the peaches and cream. And I'll get like two little bags of it, and I'll like put in a bowl, and I'll just like fill like to the put water in it, to the point to where it matches the lime of the actual oats and the oatmeal.
Yeah, that's the smart thing to do.
And then when like I let it sit in the microwave for probably about like 3 minutes or something, and then after it's done, I put like almost a whole stick of butter.
Oh, holy cow! I don't do that.
It's a little overkill.
Oh, I don't like need it though.
Well, I put milk in mine, and I'll put a lot of
cream
sweetener in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I like mine too. But I had to run home. My phone was dying, and the cord is here, and it has to hook up to this computer because I think I forget what happened to my cord. Oh, I dropped my phone while it was on my cord, and it broke.
That's
So,
right, yeah.
So I'm forced to use this one that only has like this weird, like it's like a insert thing. That's weird.
Yeah, that's how my phone is.
I need to get a new one.
For mine, but like, because my new phone that I got, it came with a charging cord, and like both like ports on each end of the cord are the same port, and usually like the one port will be like the one that hooks into the phone, and the other end will be like a USB type port, so you can stick in like your USB, whether your computer or if you have like a brick that sticks into the wall. Well, my phone just came with that cord. It didn't come with a brick. So I had to go to Walmart and get like this brick that would that cord would match up to and would fit into. But I'm glad I got it because that thing I bought at Walmart like charges my phone to 100%. Like it can be like at like less than 10%, and then it'll charge my phone to 100 within like 30 minutes.
Oh wow, that's great. I don't even think mine will do that. It'll take at least an hour.
Yeah, that's usually how mine is. But I said I don't think Dana would mind me coming and crashing her stream for a
No. In fact, I was going to say, since we're still on Strangeland, if you want to give your thoughts on it.
Yeah, just basically what I said in the chat, and I've already talked to you about how I feel about Strange. I always liked it from the first time I ever seen it. It's definitely it's not what you call like a high quality. I mean, it's good quality, but it's not like the best of the best, you know. But
Right.
it's a fun film. I enjoyed it. I was surprised because I did, Dee Snider did write it, and it, he's not a master of horror or anything like that, but I enjoy the throwbacks to like Nightmare on Elm Street and all the different, like Henry, like Chris had brought up, and
Mm-hmm.
you see, and even though I don't like The Exorcist, that with the Captain Howdy, I enjoy seeing those throwbacks to all these different horror films that he has put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. I think it's a fun film. It's one of those fun films.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the best horror film of all time? No. But it's one that I've found myself going back and rewatching. So I give it a good rating. Have you all rated it yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. We're getting ready to, and I think I couldn't tell if Chris was frowning when I said Robert Englund could be a leading man or not. He had a funny look.
I was distracted because Candace was behind me when you were saying that.
Oh, gotcha.
She was like trying to tell me something, and
I was trying to get his attention to see if I could come here and sit with you guys.
I'm glad you brought that up because I agree. I mean, he already is kind of a leading man with the Elm Street films,
Mm-hmm.
but like for like a big like budget like movie like outside of the horror genre, I can see it definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's played the lead man in a lot of these genre films, pretty much. But and he's always done a great job with everything. I mean, when he did the series V, that was a big deal at the time. When that show was coming out, and I think if they didn't think that he was going to do a great job for that series, they wouldn't have chosen him. I mean, there's definitely there's something special about Robert Englund. He stands out above a lot of other people because if you know what I mean, like a lot of actors will kind of be almost seem generic in a way to where like a lot of them kind of have the same acting styles. Well, Robert Englund, I think it's just because his look, his facial features, his voice, just how he like the way he like just portrays himself as an actor. Just kind of there's some I can't figure it out what it is, Dana, but there's something unique about it. And I think that's what makes him so likable, and that's what made him like so the Freddy thing of that where he played Freddy. That's a big part of why Robert Englund's popular, of course.
Yeah,
but it was because of his portrayal for the way he gave that character charisma to where Freddy was this likable guy, even though he's the villain, he's the killer. He's still likable to that. Where they made a pull string doll of Freddy Krueger for kids.
Yes, they did, and I got one of those things too.
I mean, but that's just but I'm kind of going off the whole point of it. But yeah, I mean that definitely Robert Englund. I mean, is a fantastic actor and could definitely pull up being a leading man in an A-list movie.
Me and Dana can see him in the romantic older gentleman type, can't we, Dana?
Oh, yeah. TJ, what are you talking about, buddy? He says he's like Tom Cat without the looks. Robert Englund's got the looks. He's an older man now, but man, go back and look at some of his older stuff.
We think he's got the looks, TJ.
Yeah.
Don't we, Dana?
And hey, Russell, by the way, I didn't want to miss saying hey to Russell, our Canadian friend here.
What makes Robert Englund so attractive, and I think Dana will agree to this, is his personality, his charisma. Mm-hmm. He's not ugly or anything like that. Physical looks aren't always what matters. But we're getting surrounded by dogs, sorry. And yes, they got diapers on, so
that's okay. Sometimes you got to do that.
We've been having some trouble, so have to do what we got to do, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I just think that he's really just a sweet person. I mean, of course, you're going to see him in Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that, and he's horrific. But in reality, when you watch these interviews with him, or if you meet him, you just find that he's just a really endearing human being, and that really makes his attractive level go up to me.
Yeah, exactly. And just on my intro, that very young Robert Englund, when he was starting to play Freddy and stuff, I just like, oh my gosh, it's like he's so adorable. That's what I say every time I watch that, or if I watch the actual interview and hear him talk, and he's talking to the woman that's interviewing him. It's just like that guy had something special from the very beginning, and he's carried that with him evidently throughout his entire life.
So I don't know if you're ever going to cover this or not. If are you just doing his movies, or you're not doing his TV series and stuff? Are you?
I probably V was probably the closest to a television series,
right? Well, something I did want to mention, because I don't know if Dana will cover this on the Robert Englund retrospective or not, but I talked a little bit about like how his voice is very distinct, and like you hear his if you close your eyes and you hear him talk, that's Robert Englund talking.
Yeah.
Well, there was the Nickelodeon 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon they did. There is a episode called The Nightmare Beavers, and it's like these mutated. There's a red one and there's a purple like mutated beaver. And one is voiced by Robert Englund, and the other is voiced by John Kassir, which is the voice of the Crypt Keeper on Tales from the Crypt. And that really surprised me that they put like these inspiration or these like tributes to like horror within that episode. But there is also like other episodes of that Ninja Turtles cartoon that have horror like tributes. Like there's one where the Ninja Turtle Raphael is watching TV, and the Flash and Pumpkin from Halloween 3 comes up on. And there's one episode where like they're being chased with this field with with a chainsaw, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I could go on about that because like I'm a big Ninja Turtles fan. So and that cartoon was just really cool. How I guess the creators of that specific Turtles cartoon must have been big horror fans too to include all of that. But yeah, that was just a little tidbit about Robert Englund's voice act, and I wanted to include.
Well, that's cool. I might want to go back and take a look at that.
Yeah, it's a funny episode.
So I guess we'll go ahead and get the rating for Strangeland. And as always, when we give our ratings, or at least part of my rating goes to Robert Englund's performance in the film. So, Chris, did you want to go ahead and give your rating for Strangeland?
For Strangeland, talking about it kind of makes me want to go back and watch it again. And just what I remember from it, everything we've talked about, like I said in the beginning of this, I don't hate this movie, but it's just not one that I'm like super interested in. So just based off of all that, I'm going to be generous and say I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay. Let me put that up there. And Candace, what's your rating?
Well, even though, like I said, it's probably not the greatest film in the world, but it's one that I find myself going back and watching. It's one that I like. It's one that I can say, hey, yeah, I like this movie. It's interesting. It's unique. I would give it a 4 because I do find myself going back and rewatching it and, doing so at will. and I just think it's fun. I think it's a fun film. It's different, and there's
Right,
some kind of shocking scenes in there
Mhm.
that deals with this body modification stuff. And there's a scene like it shows like a catheter tube. That to me was like pushing
Yeah.
the limit. I was like, this is
Yeah, that was kind of hard to watch. Yeah.
yeah, that was pushing the limit. I said, but isn't this what the horror film's supposed to do? It's supposed to push the limit. So yeah, definitely a good 4. I would give this film.
Well, I'm going to meet y'all in the middle here. So envision a half there. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Well, I mean, if we're counting halves, I would probably change mine to a 2.5. But
No, Chris, don't go
but
that low.
like I said, I'll be generous and give it a 3. I don't know. I mean, like it's interesting, and the most interesting thing about
I'll
it,
be right
though.
back.
All right.
Because these dogs are
Yeah,
really
I understand. They're being very needy right now. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, but like it's what's very real about it is the whole thing, the aspect of like how this could be something that could actually happen, especially and it's also really unique for that time. Very unique for that time that because these chat rooms online were very new, and so at least they were being innovative as far as horror films. They weren't really copying anything that had already been done. So I can appreciate it for that.
Exactly. And the only other movie that really, gosh, and the title of it just dropped right out of my brain. See, it's not fun getting old, folks. It's just not fun getting old. Golly. Okay, probably I'll think of it about an hour after we get off here. But there was a film, I think it may have been either really late 90s or into the early 2000s.
Do you remember who was a part of it?
Daggone. I'm going to have to try to look it up some here. Hold on a sec, folks, because it's going to bother me.
Sorry, the dogs were. They seen some snacks that Chris had up here, and I had to go give them a snack.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember a movie, Candace.
Okay.
Yeah. These are the snacks I got, by the way. They're like Cheetos, but they're like pepper jack cheese from Pears.
That sounds good.
Pears. I like that brand.
Yeah.
I won't stick them up because the dogs will come
good.
back.
Okay, so I know Christine Taylor is in it. So let me see.
Ben Stiller's wife?
Yeah. I had forgotten she was Ben Stiller's wife.
She plays a wonderful Marsha Brady.
Yes.
I like her. She does. You're right. She does wonderful Marsha Brady, but my favorite movie of hers probably Zoolander. Because that's my favorite Ben Stiller movie too.
So, what movie are you trying to think of?
Okay, Campfire Tales. That was.
I remember that.
Yeah, I've not seen that in a long
time. From
time.
like 97.
Yeah,
that was the one that I was trying to remember because. We were talking about the early days of the chat rooms and how it was frightening that somebody could lure children to their death or to be tortured or whatever, or, a sexual predator of some sort. So one of the stories that these kids tell is a story about a young girl who looks maybe all of 12 or so, 11, 12, and she's, her birthday's the next day. And her older sister is supposed to be babysitting her while the parents go out. Well, she basically, pays the little girl off, the older sister does, so she can go out with her boyfriend on a date thereby leaving the young girl alone in this big house, just her and her dog.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So this was a very unsettling story. So the girl, as soon as her sister leaves and the parents have left and everything, she gets on the computer, gets on the internet, and gets into a chat room. And she's talking to some people from her school, but somebody else comes in there pretending to be another young girl. But we see it switches gears. We see that it's some creepy dude sitting behind a computer, and it's just really, really bizarre and unsettling. So this kind of does the urban legend thing too. And you're gonna remember the urban legend when I start telling this. So remember, she is in the house alone with her big. It looks like a golden retriever dog, and I'm going to get into some territory that I hate to talk about because I love dogs so much and love animals of all kinds. So she gets kind of spooked when it gets late, but she thinks, well, I'll just go ahead and get in bed. I'm tired. And by the time I wake up, my sister will be back or the parents will be back or whatever. And she says, I have my dog here. So, my dog will keep me safe. He's a big old golden retriever. So we find out that creepy guy has gotten her address. And somehow he gets into the house. I think he crawls into the doggy door. So people with doggy doors are going to be thinking, oh my God. So he crawls into the doggy door, sneaks into the house, or sneaks into the garage and then gets into the house and gets under her bed. And you're thinking, oh my God, that guy's under her bed, and she doesn't know it. But the dog gets off of the bed and we assume it goes to lay down somewhere. So she hears something dripping. It sounds like it's dripping in the bathroom, and she gets a little weirded out, and she reaches her hand down beside the bed because she thinks that's where her dog is, and something licks her hand.
Yeah.
And people are probably starting to remember this story and where it's going. So she does that maybe about 2-3 times. But then the dripping is just driving her crazy coming from the bathroom. She's like, I got to go in there and turn the faucet off or whatever. She goes in there and her dog is hanging up on the shower nozzle, dripping blood. And then at the same time she's screaming, the guy comes crawling out from under her bed and comes after her, and he's got this long stringy hair, and it's just so creepy. He had been licking her hand every time she put her hand there. And then you know what was written on the mirror. I think they have variations of this in the dog's blood. Maniacs lick hands too.
Ooh.
And that is one of the most chilling urban legends I think I've ever heard. I mean, there've been a lot of them, but that one was chilling.
This isn't an urban legend. This is real life. I don't know if you've ever seen the show before, but I think it came on TLC or Lifetime. I cannot remember. It's called Frogging. Phrogging. Frogging. And it's a show where real life people come and tell their stories of people who had committed frogging in their house. Frogging is the act of somebody sneaking into somebody's house and like either living there or staying there, living within the walls, living in the attic.
Much like how Black Christmas is.
And those stories creep me out. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've never seen it, it's a really good show. It's just like real life people, So I will tell you this: if you watch it, Dana, it'll make you paranoid for sure.
Well, I'll tell this story real quick. I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but back when I first started trying to read Helter Skelter, which was about Charles Manson and his cult, I could not get through that book for the
Yeah,
longest
it's a hard
time
one. I've read it. Yeah.
because I got to the part where they cut the screens in Sharon Tate's house and they were talking about the creepy crawls. They called them creepy crawls, where they would dress all in black and stuff. And they would sneak into people's houses just to see if they could do it. They
Yeah.
wouldn't kill anybody. They just kind of scope out the house. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, And so I would have to put the book down.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of stuff that terrifies me. That real life stuff is what
Yeah.
terrifies me.
Night Stalker. Have you ever watched it or read it? Night Stalker about Richard
I
Ramirez.
think I did. Yeah, and isn't that the one, Candace, where it talks about when he's going to kill these women, he's listened to AC/DC shoot to thrill or whatever.
Well, they had found a hat that he had on. It was an AC/DC hat in the garage of one of his victims, and that's how AC/DC got brought into it.
Yeah,
Because
which is sad, though.
Yeah, because AC/DC on the Highway to Hell album has a song called Night Prowler.
Yeah,
and they kind of look at that. That's about a man sneaking into a woman's window and making love. You know how AC/DC is. But they construed that like this song has like brainwashed him to want to go and night prowl into somebody's house and kill these people. And they've like taken these lyrics and misconstrued them because they found that hat and the one, I think it was the garage of one of his victims. But that book, I mean, it kind of like how you were with Helter Skelter. I kind of had to put it down because it would make me sick.
Yeah.
Like I would get like physically ill and just creeped out. Because that's real life that really happened. I used to read a lot of those true crime books about like the Green River City Killer or whatever his name was. Green River Killer, I think's his name. I read a book about that.
And the BTK killer.
BTK.
Yeah.
But to me, the one that was really, really chilling, I mean, they're all chilling, but that Night Stalker book was really rough because it went into detail of things that he did, and it was really sick. Really sick.
Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom for a second.
Oh, that's okay. I'm surprised I haven't had to go yet. But
we something I thought of as I was walking through there, though. We've been talking about all these different like creepy story, like urban legends, and just creeps in general, and guys or weirdos is real life type stuff that could happen. I'm curious if there's a couple films that I watched last year. Not sure exactly when they came out. I was curious if you'd ever seen them, Dana. Well, first let me ask you: are you a fan of like the found footage type horror films?
To some extent, I think at one point there was too many of them on the market, but initially I really liked those types of films.
Well, there was two in particular. I believe they were on Netflix. They might still be on there. But I just I had heard people talk about it. I've seen like people do artwork of these films, and they're called Creep and Creep 2. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with them?
I'm familiar with the title, but I haven't seen them.
So those are some of the most interesting found footage films I've ever watched, especially that first one. Which, it's hard for me to even tell you like what goes on in that film because it's just one of those types of films where it's better off if you just go into it blind, watch it, and just see how it plays out. But like the guy in both of those films that focuses around is very, very creepy. And that's what made me think of those. So it was a Very fitting title for those.
Exactly.
But before I forget, I want to just say, just in case somebody was still thinking about it, but on our Friday Foolish last Friday, I had thought of a movie that I couldn't think the title of, but I finally
Mhm.
found out what the title. What is that guy's name? The one that plays in Major Dad? I keep forgetting.
Oh, shoot. He
What?
was on Simon and Simon, wasn't he,
Yes,
too,
yes.
Candace?
But I found out what the movie was. What was it? Cabin by the Lake
It was
or
the people across the lake.
People Across the Lake? Yeah, Cabin by the Lake is with
Oh, I know who
Judd.
you're-
What's his name from Breakfast Club?
Judd Nelson?
Judd Nelson. Yeah.
But no, I think I know who you're talking about. Is it the same guy that was in that show your dad used to like to watch called
Yeah,
Heart?
he was
Heart?
married to Delta Burke. Yeah.
But is it the show that your dad used to? It's called Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart. No, he's in Simon and Simon, isn't he, Dana?
Or
I'm
maybe
pretty sure he was in Simon and Simon.
What's his
maybe
name?
that's what I'm thinking
Shoot,
of.
forget it. I was just I had it in my head. But that's the movie that I was thinking about the hand grabbing his leg whenever he went skinny dipping.
What's the show called? Simon and Simon.
Simon and Simon, yeah.
Is it Gerald McRaney?
Yes, Gerald McRaney. Yeah, Gerald McRaney. Yeah, that's him.
This guy right here.
Yeah, he went skinny dipping in that, and it's got Valerie Harper in it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Valerie Harper was in a lot of those TV movies like that.
She was, yeah. I love Valerie Harper. I gotta call her.
All right.
But
yeah, Candace's mom called, so
that's okay.
Something wrong. It might be something wrong. You never know.
But I guess I'll move on to now, Chris. I don't know if you got to watch The Prince and the Surfer.
I never heard of it.
She was calling me to tell me Gerald McRaney. She's watching us. I was just calling you to say Gerald McRaney.
Well, I'm glad it was that and not something wrong.
My phone was dead. I thought it was dead, but okay. I love you too. Bye. Sorry.
But now,
that's no problem.
I have never heard of that movie until I seen you were going to be covering. I'm like, I didn't even know that such a movie existed.
What movie was it?
What's it called again, Dana?
The Prince and the Surfer, which is a take on The Prince and the Pauper story.
Oh, okay.
So you have two boys. Of course, it's played by the same actor. And one is like a surfer and a skateboarder. And one is a prince. Hence the name The Prince and the Surfer. And it's not a really elaborate storyline. I mean, if you know The Prince and the Pauper, you'll be very familiar with this. Now, Robert Englund's character they call him a minister, but he's not like a preacher or anything. This is supposed to be, I guess, over in the UK.
So this is a kids movie. I'm looking at the VHS cover now, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely probably something I would have rented when I was a kid. But I don't ever remember seeing this ever.
C. Thomas Howell.
Yeah, C. Thomas Howell's in it.
And Linda Cardellini's also in this too. Like she was in Strangeland.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Now that you bring it up, Jennifer O'Neill's in it.
Yeah. I don't see Thomas Howell. Some of these people though I don't recognize at all, but that's really cool that
because John Boyd is the film's presenter.
Linda Cardellini and Robert Englund did 2 films together.
Who's that?
Timothy Bottoms. I don't know that name either. This is John Voight is the film's presenter, and Denise Wilson is Tattoo Woman. Yeah, that's really cool. Like I said, this is like a definitely targeted towards kids based off this VHS cover.
I have seen that cut probably at our local library.
That
Seems
sounds like something they would have.
Well,
seems like I've
there
seen
was a
that.
movie that came out in the 90s too. It was a kids movie called A Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Yeah, I know that.
And the cover of this kind of reminds me because it's got the castle in the background. This kid on this he's on a skateboard on this cover, but I mean, it's called Prince and the Surfer. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm interested now, Dana.
I think you guys would like it because it's not going to be some big budget type of thing. It's low budget, obviously.
Yeah.
But even though Robert Englund plays a kind of bad character, he's still got that Robert Englund charm, and it's not a so bad of a character that you can't, enjoy watching him. Because he, like I said, they call him a minister, but it's not a minister like a priest or a preacher or anything like that. He's just the guy that is part of the queen's I don't know, consort or whatever you call that. And he's supposed to, I guess give her advice and stuff like that. But what he really wants to do is he wants to make money for himself, and he wants to try to trick the queen and the prince into signing away some land, and so he can run off with thousands and thousands of dollars. He doesn't really care what happens to this piece of land they got. I think they want to turn it into a mini golf course. But the real story is with the boy that's the surfer and the skateboarder, and the prince who comes over from the UK. And because they look exactly alike, they're able to switch roles. And so a lot of funny things happen to them. Romances start up with the prince is supposed to, he's betrothed, is how they say it,
Yeah.
to this young girl, but they don't really like each other. And she thinks he's like childish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She's always putting him down for stuff. So what happens is she eventually ends up getting with the surfer, and the girl that liked him ends up getting with the prince. And they end up getting married and, starting their own little businesses up and stuff like that. It kind of tells what they did after the story was over. And Robert Englund's character, they find him out, and he gets handcuffed and taken away for a little while because he was, scheming to do these bad things. But it's a really basic story, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. It'd be nice for a lazy Sunday watch. You
Like
could,
a family movie or
yeah,
something.
you could safely have your kids watch this movie and not have to worry about anything being in it that you might have to talk to them about.
Something interesting. I'm just looking at like people that were involved with the film stuff. Now I went to see who the director was, and his name is Ari Gross. And I knew that name sounded familiar. And Ari Gross is the guy that plays Jesse, the main character from House 2. So,
Okay.
the main character from House 2 directed this movie you're talking about.
And I think he was in it too. I think he directed it and he had a small part in it.
Yeah, it looks like, and he was just a part of a lot of stuff. It says that he played Willie and just one of the guys. It says he was in Tequila Sunrise. Let's see what else. He was a part of Gone in 60 Seconds, Minority Report, just a lot of stuff. It looks like he was involved in a lot of like TV series as well. But like as soon as I seen that name, he's
the narrator for the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
But it says that he's in
he was
episode.
Because the actual narrator for the Wonder is Daniel Stern.
Yeah, he's the pilot. So I guess they first went with him and it wasn't working, so they went with Daniel Stern.
Yeah, just in the pilot, but then Daniel Stern was the narrator for the majority of the Wonder Years. But But yeah, I knew I'd seen that name before, and and I started looking at his credits. I was like, oh, he's the main character in House 2. I love the House films.
Yeah, me
Two's
too.
my favorite. I love House 2.
Hmm. So, if you haven't seen The Prince and the Surfer, I would recommend it. Like I said, for a lazy Sunday watch, something that you could watch with your kids or your grandkids or your nieces and nephews or whatever, you know. And I would even recommend it for, Candace and Chris could sit down with Noah and watch this. I think
Yeah.
Noah would enjoy it.
Well, yeah, it's definitely I think something he would enjoy because we've showed him several other
Yeah.
like films like they're like kids movies from the '90s and
Oh,
stuff.
he loves older stuff.
Yeah, and
We recently showed him Rockadoodle. Did you ever watch that one, Dana?
I know what that is, but I don't think I ever watched it.
That was a movie from whenever me and Chris was kids that we
Yeah, I
that we
loved
both loved. And it's about a rooster. He's kind of like a Elvis rooster.
Hmm.
So he liked that one.
yeah,
He loved that.
yeah, it's kind of one of those things because we were watching it and so a majority of the film Rockadoodle is all animation, but there
Right.
is a little live action blended into it as well, kind of like Roger Rabbit. And that was not ever mentioned to Noah, but Noah knew that was the style of Roger Rabbit. And he goes, hey, this is kind of like that movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I was like, yeah, it is. I never thought about it like that, but you're right. But yeah, we've showed him a lot of stuff. He usually likes the stuff that we show him. He really likes The Sandlot.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't think he's watched Paper Brigade yet, but I feel like he would like
That's
that
one I
movie.
think he would really like.
I think so
He
too.
and my nephews, I think all of them would like that one.
And if he watches this one, he'll get to see Robert Englund again.
Yeah. And anything, if you tell him now that he's met Robert Englund and stuff like that, he never forgets that. He's like, oh, that's got Robert Englund in it. I've met him. He was so nice to me. And he just always brings up how awesome Robert Englund was to him whenever he met him. So we may have to show him this if we can find it. Is it on DVD?
It's actually on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
Where I watched, yeah. And I wish that I'd had the forethought to say, hey, Chris, here's the link to The Prince and the Surfer. But I don't know. I had one of those brain lapses where I just totally forgot. But yeah, if anybody wants to watch it on YouTube, just go on YouTube, punch in The Prince and the Surfer, and you should be able to watch it.
But I definitely know that is a movie that I have seen, and I almost guarantee it was from my library. Because they always got in those kind of movies like that was like book based, like kind of like Wishbone, the TV series Wishbone, or just like those. Remember those movies that we grew up with? I don't know if you remember them or not, Dana, but they were. I forget who put them out, but it was some kind of like organization for like families, and it was called like the Buttercream Game.
Oh yeah.
Was
one.
Yeah. Another one was called Rigoletti. It was kind of like a Beauty and the Beast type.
Did the same people that put those out do like Mouse and the Motorcycle?
No, I don't think. That's Beverly Cleary. I used to read those
books.
Did
you ever see the Mouse and the Motorcycle?
Yes. And I love them. Yeah.
In the movie, Fred Savage is in them. We were talking about Wonder Years. Yeah, Fred Savage is in the Mouse and the Motorcycle movie.
Actually, Blissful has done the legwork for you guys and gals. She's got the link to The Prince and the Surfer.
Okay, awesome.
For anybody that wants to see that. Speaking of Beverly Cleary, I used to watch those Ramona episodes.
Yes.
I loved Ramona.
Ramona and the Pest. And
now there was one book she did called Super Fudge. And they adapted that into a TV show that came on Saturday mornings on ABC. Sometime the night it was just called I can't remember, it was either called Fudge or it was called Super Fudge. But it only lasted like one season, but I liked it so much because I knew it was from the book because I read those books, like
Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing was like the introduction to Fudge because it talked about Peter, his older brother, and I remember like Fudge. If you ever had a younger brother,
Yes.
you will identify with Peter and how he gets exasperated with his brother Fudge. What was his name? Farley Drexel Hatcher, wasn't that his name? And they called him Fudge.
Remember.
I think that because I
Remember.
think the mom said Farley Drexel. She would call him that whenever she would. How did they go from having Peter, which is a pretty normal name,
Yeah.
to Farley Drexel?
Who knows? Who knows? But I
Uh,
loved all those Beverly Cleary books and
Otherwise known as Sheila the Great. That was and that had a connection with Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing because
yeah,
Peter couldn't stand Sheila. They were
yeah.
always, arguing.
And I feel like all those books that she did were kind of the inspiration for what this generation's books, which is the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I don't know, you ever heard of those books?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that was kind of like, and those books were inspired by all those Beverly Cleary books.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I think about Beverly Cleary, I think about the Mouse on the Motorcycle, and it makes me think of my grandmother Brenda and because she loved those movies. And I think she's the one that actually bought me the books, but she would use that term. Did you hear the Mouse on the Motorcycle? Or something that somebody does.
I know the story very well.
When somebody would do something, you know what I'm talking about? Past wind.
Yeah.
I think I heard the Mouse on the Motorcycle. So I remember starting to date Chris, and he was talking about the Mouse on the Motorcycle. I told him that, and he was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, that's what." He said, "Well, I guess it makes sense." I said, "Well, it was cute, as a kid, it makes you laugh." So
I love that when they would show that all the time, like sometimes on after school specials and stuff on ABC or whatever, they would show that on TV a lot. That Mouse on the Motorcycle movie.
You know what the sad thing about all that is unless you're like Noah and you guys share with Noah stuff that y'all grew up watching, a lot of parents don't do that, and I think that that's kind of a lost art form.
it is, yeah.
It is.
See, I give Noah his whole bookshelf here is filled. He's actually got the Mouse on the Motorcycle books and stuff over here. He's got all the Goosebump books. Remember Amelia Bedelia?
Oh yeah.
Those. Every book that I can find like that, I buy. He's got hundreds of books.
Do y'all remember? Sorry, Candace, go ahead.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Y'all remember Danny and the Dinosaur?
Yes.
Remember that? I loved that one.
It's somewhere over here or on one of our other bookshelves, but I love books. I extend that with Noah because he loves, for the past couple of years, we've been doing all the Roald Dahl books. Yeah. He's read James and the Giant Peach, Matilda.
He hasn't read Charlie.
He's not gone to that one yet, but he absolutely loves Roald Dahl. So we're trying to get him to read the entire, major books that he has. But I think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the next one that he's going to be reading. But
so you want to be a live stream star or something?
He is being super clingy tonight. I don't know what.
Yeah, he's normally not like this.
He's like Reg. Reggie's like that.
His tail's like 190 mile an hour. I don't know if he just wants attention or what it is.
I gotta ask Candace, and Chris maybe too might remember this, but this is a real blast from the past. How many people remember Terry and the Caterpillars? The book Terry and the Caterpillars. I used to love that book.
I don't think I know that one.
I don't think I know that.
That was one of those books that was in the style of Danny and the Dinosaur and all those other kinds of books. But it was about a little girl, Terry, who found these caterpillars. She put them in a tank. She fed them and stuff. And then they did the cocoons. And then when they came out of the cocoons, they were butterflies. But I absolutely loved that book.
What's that one?
The Hungry Caterpillar?
That's what I was thinking of, the Hungry Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Or Very Hungry.
Very Hungry. Yeah, I love all those books. I'm telling you, I just don't think kids read enough these days.
Well, they're so involved with computers and games, which we were too. Video games existed.
Oh yeah.
But when we were that age, so we were either the internet didn't exist or it was something that was very new.
It was early.
And but by that point that all that stuff came out, we were already adapted to how we did other things like playing outside, riding bikes.
Oh yeah.
Watching movies or TV show or just playing board games, whatever it was, we did, all the time. Because I know that I did a lot of different things. Candace has done a lot of different things. Stop, buddy.
Come on.
Stop.
Go sit down.
Sit down.
He thinks he's like 2 pounds, Dana.
But yeah, a lot of kids did different things, at our age and stuff. And even I'm sure when you were that age, you had a lot of different things that you did,
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm an old woman, guys and gals. I didn't have really, there was Atari and stuff like that, but we didn't have that at the house or anything like that. And so, I mean, my entertainment was, unless I was watching TV, it was going outside and exploring.
Yeah.
It was reading books. It was all of that. There were not all these devices at
Right.
that time to distract you.
The kids are so
Yeah.
they have a very small amount of activities that they do nowadays. They're very limited because they either want to just be on a computer or a phone or
But to be honest, it's the same for us too.
It's more that way for me now. I said I wouldn't get addicted to a cell phone, and already, it's laying right here beside me now.
Come on. Well, I don't know what's gotten him to go. He doesn't bother.
He does. Yeah, I think it's because where me and Candace are in here together, because usually if it's just me or if it's just her, doing one of these streams by ourselves, the dogs will just lay back there behind us or whatever. Because a lot of times when I'm in here doing these streams with you, Dana, they're just laying back there behind me on Noah's bed, and but I think it's just where we're both in here, and they just want to play around stuff.
Well, Reggie, he comes back here when I'm working, and he'll put his paw on me, and I say, Reggie, I'm trying to work, buddy, and he'll put that paw back on my arm, and so I have to pet him, and
that's what they do.
Yeah, it's like our little dog Miko. Like today, I was working, and he was just, I could hear him like scuffling around outside my office door. And then he started scratching at it. And then he started barking. And I was like, I gotta do something about this now. I said, because I can't, we're not supposed to have any kind of like background noise when I'm the calls that I take and stuff. Yeah, so I just had to go like in there real quick and like put him in our bedroom and get him to settle down. I was like, I'm trying to work. I can't have you barking outside my door like that.
But Dana, I'm getting excited about Friday Foolish.
Me too. I mean, actually, I'm always excited about Friday Foolish since me and Candace started doing these.
Are you gonna be able to do that this Friday though?
Oh, what time are we leaving?
We gotta leave pretty early, so you may not be able to do this.
We will. Dana, I just remembered. That this Friday is Noah's concert.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay. What we could do is reschedule it and do an evening show, or we could just skip it this week. Whatever.
Well, we probably won't be back because it's all the way in Indiana.
Yeah, it takes us about, I think it's like 4 to 4.5 hours to get there. Well, the show starts at 7, so we'd have to leave relatively early. It's up to you.
Unless we could reschedule it for another day. I don't know if that will work for you.
Yeah, it would work for me. I mean, whatever, works for you, Candace.
Maybe Thursday or something. You guys could do like a special Friday Foolish a day early.
Don't know. Dana probably would be working. And
oh, yeah. guess that's the case. Yeah, it's whatever you all
I'll
figure it
let
out.
you
I'll
figure that
stay
out,
of this.
Dana. Whenever you want, if you want to redo it,
Well,
like
we could still call it Friday Foolish. It's
yeah,
our show, so we can call it anything we want. But I was thinking, since I'm not doing a movie munchies or watch alongs this weekend, because this is my weekend off from doing that, maybe we could do like an impromptu one Saturday or Sunday, whichever
that'll
day
be
would work
fine.
better
Yeah,
for
that'll
you
be
guys.
fine.
Um,
Yeah, just
we
I'll let
wouldn't
you.
even have to do it. We could do it around the same time we do it on Fridays if
Yeah,
one
that'll
would
be
work
fine.
for you. Like
Yeah.
maybe we could do one p.m. Sunday, because I'll pick Sunday because Steve may want. I think he's wanting to take me out to eat to this Korean barbecue place or
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
That reminds me, Dana. Have you had? Do you eat at KFC very much?
I would probably eat at it more if Steve liked it, but yeah, I eat at it quite a bit.
They have these new they're like called sauced nuggets,
Hmm.
and you have a bunch of different like choices to choose from as far as the sauce is on the nuggets, and they have one called Korean barbecue, and I got those the other day, and man, that was a really good flavor to that. And I think it was like you get. Well, they were running a deal at the time when I got them. If you bought through the KFC app, if you bought $10 worth of food, then you got a 10 pack of those nuggets for free.
Hmm.
You know, me and my brother went to the very first KFC. It's in where is that at, Chris? Over in Corbin. It's like a
Yeah, I
little
think so.
museum, Dana. That it's a real
Oh
awesome. It's
yeah.
still in operation,
Uh,
and it's got like all the Colonel Sanders stuff there. You ought
uh,
to see some of the autographs that they have there from just
wow.
anybody you can think of. I guess who's ate at KFC.
Yeah,
But the,
because you all took a bunch of pictures in there, and there
yeah,
was like a bunch of different like wrestlers and everything in there. They had autographs up on the wall.
mhm.
I was
It's a
like,
Mhm.
neat
that's
little museum.
different.
When you go there, it's right out in the middle of nowhere. Well, not nowhere. It's in Corbin, which is a small little town, but it's a big town for around
That
here.
area is
But you
pretty
see like people from Asia, you
outdoor.
see people from Great
Wow.
Britain there. All these people who have flown over here just to see that place. And I was like, that's so neat that people would want to come all the way over here to see KFC because they
Yeah.
love KFC. So I just thought that was
Well,
neat.
it's like Moonlight Barbecue. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Moonlight Barbecue, but it's in Owensboro, which I talk about Owensboro quite a bit because it was 30 minutes from my mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Moonlight Barbecue has been there, it seems like, forever. And that's like world famous almost barbecue. And people come from all over just to eat at Moonlight Barbecue in Owensboro.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a restaurant kind of like that where a lot of people come from all over to
Mhm.
eat at. It's in Huntington, West Virginia, called
Hmm.
Fat Patties. And I used to live over in Huntington. I know that's a funny name, but I used to live over in Huntington, West Virginia for like very temporarily back around like 2008. Um, and that was the first time and the only time I ever lived like out of the state of Kentucky. But I just had a lot of friends over there, and it was just something I was doing. Part of getting that experience, I guess, of like being out there on my own. That was the first time I had lived away from
Mhm.
my parents and all that.
Right.
But yeah, there was a restaurant over there called Fat Patties that we would go to a lot, and it was a really cool like atmosphere. I mean, they had a bar, but they also had like a stage where they had like live bands were playing all the time, and they had like well, what they call like stoner foods.
Yeah.
Um, they had like some really like crazy concoctions with their foods and stuff. They would have like they had this one. I can't remember what it was called. They would put a bunch of food together, Like I can't, and they all had names. All the different types of foods that they had names. There was one that had it was like a layer of fries, and they put cheese on those fries with ranch, and then on top, stacked on top of that, was like 5 or 6 cheese sticks, and those
This is
were
making
also.
me hungry.
And it was just what they call like I guess stoner food, but like I love that but everybody went to there. Like there was people that came from out of state and everything just to come and eat there. And I don't know if it's still there or not because it's been a while since we've actually been over to West Virginia. But usually when we go to West Virginia now, we just eat at Hillbilly Hot Dogs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we go there to Billy Bob's Wonderland.
Or there too, yeah.
There you go.
But I go ahead and head out. I have to go back down my mom's.
Okay. Well, thank you for stopping by, Candace, and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Thank you for letting me come on and crash it. But I'm gonna head on out and leave y'all to it. But I'll hop back on to the chat though, and when I get back down there, it don't take me long to get down there. So yeah, I'll be back home after a while.
Right, I love you.
I love you too.
So TJ says Dana takes a break by doing the same thing on her breaks. Dedication. Well, this is a special thing. Normally I wouldn't, but I'm really looking forward to doing that Friday Foolish with Candace because we're going to be talking about badass women in horror movies.
Yeah, because I'm looking forward to y'all doing that one too, and I didn't even think about it when y'all were doing it last week, and to mention that because I kind of forgot till a few days ago. I was like, oh, that concert is this Friday.
Yeah,
because I've already taken off work and everything for it.
That's one thing I'll say about myself is I'm flexible. I can be flexible not flexible with my body because especially at the age I am now, you wouldn't want me to try to contort into some kind of shape or something. I'd never get out.
I'm sure Steve would like that, but
that's probably
that's none of our business, Dana.
But anyway, I want to give I don't want to get off of here before Candace gets back down to your mom's or her mom's house and to get on here. But Chris, is there anything that you want to talk about or bring up or anything that you've gotten in lately or?
I'm trying to think here. Well, I just did want to mention something about you're talking about the Friday Foolish stuff, like and the theme y'all are doing the badass women of horror. I was going to be on there and like we come on there a little bit and talk with y'all too, but don't know if I'll be able to now if you do it on Sunday, because I think during that time I'll probably be at the flea market set up because I am setting up this weekend. But I did mention the cancer today. I said if for some reason I'm not able to come on there and talk with you guys during your Friday Foolish show, I said you have to bring up Ripley from the Alien series because
definitely
that's my favorite female character out of any film ever is Ellen Ripley, and because I just felt like she was like the epitome of badass, and and I put her over Sarah Connor. And Sarah Connor was a badass too,
Right, exactly.
And I was talking to my friend Brad about the other day when we went to FrankenCon, and he was like taken back by that because he knew he knows how much I love the Terminator films. So he's like, wow, he said you put Ellen Ripley over Sarah Connor. I was like, yeah. He's like, wow, that's saying a lot then. But yeah, that's going to definitely be a fun show for you guys.
I think so too, and as all the shows have been fun that I've done with Candace, and we've only done a handful of shows, but it's special every time because me and Candace and me and you too have always had a really good rapport with each other, and so I think the fact that we're all such close friends and and all of that, and like a lot of the same things.
Mhm.
Not everything exactly the same, but some things.
Most of the time, though.
But nah, TJ, I'm not. This gal ain't going into TMI territory anymore. Those days are gone. That I'll just say that was a mistake, and I'll just leave it there.
I was trying to think if there's anything that I got in recently I could talk about. I mean, not really. I mean, the last stuff that I got was the stuff I showed off the other night on when I got back from FrankenCon.
Mm-hmm.
But I did check on the status today of that House on Haunted Hill vinyl that I pre-ordered, and it says it's supposed to be out either later this month or beginning of next month. So I'm excited to get that whenever that comes in. I mean, I've been looking at a lot of things online that I would like to have, but I don't really have the money to get all of everything that I want right now. You know?
Right, me too. I understand that.
Is there anything like you've been eyeballing here lately, Dana, that you would like
Oh,
to
there's
have?
yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to have, but one thing, that thing that you sent me a picture of, that
Oh,
chainsaw, I
yes.
would like to have that.
I have to. If anybody hasn't seen it, there is I can't remember the name of the company, but let me pull it up here real quick from that message I sent you. Okay, so it says pre-orders will be open soon. In the meantime, preview the incredible replica below. So the company is called Syndicate Collectibles,
Mm-hmm.
and they are putting out an Ash's chainsaw from Army of Darkness, and it's 28 inches long, has real chainsaw sound effects. It's wearable, so you can wear it like you have the chainsaw hand. And I don't know what the price is as of yet. I'm sure it's going to be pretty
There's
expensive,
going to be a hefty price tag to it, I
but
bet.
it's got like a picture here what it looks like, and then what it looks like inside the box, and it's just really cool. I mean, if you're an Evil Dead fan, this is a must get. I mean, so I'm sure if you just go to if you have Instagram, because it looks like this post is from their Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's the official Syndicate Collectibles is the name, and or if you just go to bloodydisgusting.com, they're the one
Right.
that put out the article about the announcement for that. So yeah, it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, when you sent me that, Chris, I was like, oh man, I want that so bad.
Well, yeah, as soon as I saw that today, you were the first person I sent that to. I said, oh, Dana would love that. It's so cool. Do
I'm
you
on
know
their
how to start?
website actually, and I'm seeing they got Kiss stuff, and
Do you know how to share your screen? Can you do that on StreamYard?
yeah,
I was gonna say you could like pull that picture up and maybe show everybody what it looks like. Cause
yeah, I can do that. Hold on just a second here, gang. Let's see. Which I was actually gonna do before we got off here. I was gonna show how the shop page is looking for Deadites on Deck.
good point, TJ. TJ says comparing the OG Alien and OG Terminator, Ripley was more an individual badass, and Sarah had help from a man.
Yeah, I saw that he had put that.
That's true, but like you got to look at Sarah Connor from an overall perspective, because from that point, from the original Terminator 2, it's like she's a completely different woman, and yeah, that's a thing I could go on about all day.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah, that's so cool, and it's got I like the little touch they put the blood like stains on the chainsaw blade and stuff too. That's really, really neat. I'm curious if like because it says it's going to have like chainsaw. Is it? Um, I get it's a chainsaw and it should just have chainsaw sounds, but I think it would also be neat if they put like little Bruce Campbell Ash quotes that plays through it as well. But I know that wouldn't make sense. That's just kind of my own. That's what I would do if I was making it.
Yeah, well, we always have our own ideas about what we would like to do if we were doing these things. So, since I'm sharing my screen anyway, or was sharing my screen for that, I will. Hold on just 1 second here. Let me share my screen again. Um, okay. So, can everybody see my new shop site here? Where it says Did I?
I love that banner.
Yeah, I was just playing around and made that one day.
It's really neat.
But you've got your welcome, and then there's a contact me thing in case somebody wanted to say, Dana, you suck, and send that to me.
Don't give anybody any ideas, though.
But so then if you click on the start shopping, let me see if hold on here. I've got things categorized. I finally learned how to do that. So we've got the stuffed animals, and then we've got Booga Booga Bears on there. And then it goes into my horror candles. And let's say you wanted to get the Freddy's Nightmare. If you click on it, you can actually see the design, and you can see the color of the wax. And it will tell you that this is gray wax and marshmallow scent. And you can add as many as you want to your cart. You could add 100 to your cart if you wanted to, but I've got one for the stuff. I've got the Henrietta Honeysuckle, the Christine's Fury, Farmer Vincent's Critter Fritter, Killer Clown's Cotton Candy Chaos, and Nora Bates' Homemade Cinnamon Rose. So, in case you hadn't gotten to take a look at my my website, that's what it's looking like.
I mean, is that through Wix? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what I decided to go with.
Yeah, that's a good option because I mean, it seems like it's pretty like easy to figure out and everything how to do the layout of your websites and stuff. Because Candace, she's done a lot of websites in the past through Wix, and that's her favorite, source to use as well.
I was trying to think if there was. Of course, I want to remind everybody about the Apples and Oranges show tomorrow night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss it.
I'll be on that one with you as well if you don't mind, Dana.
Oh yeah. And if I forget to send you the link, Chris, just say, "Hey, Dana, can you send me that link?"
Because I had thought so. I have some thoughts, and I'll bring that up tomorrow regarding the mini series.
I'm sure everybody's gonna have some thoughts.
But so I watched it again last night. The mini series. Well, I thought I watched it again. So as I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute. I said, none of this seems familiar. Like maybe I was thinking of another mini series when I was a kid when watching this, but I'm pretty sure last night was the first time I ever watched that.
Oh, interesting.
Because I thought I'd seen it, but now after watching, I was like, no. I was like, I don't think I've seen this. So maybe I had it mistaken with something else. But yeah. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll talk about that stuff tomorrow.
I'm eagerly anticipating, what Chris thinks about it. I mean, I already know what Uncle Bill and CK think about it. But the key is to get them on here because, as people have seen, even when it's just me and Uncle Bill and maybe, a couple of other people, if we get started on something, then it turns into like this. Everybody always finds it funny because me and Uncle Bill have been friends long enough that we just carry on and
That's just
bust each other's balls about stuff all the time.
that's your all's gimmick. You all. That's what people tune in to see, Dana.
I think they really do because anytime me and Uncle Bill are on there talking about something, we're going back and forth. And every time Uncle Bill will get on here, now listen here, Dana, or Dana, or whatever he decides to call me that night. Batman says, would you guys consider Ozzy shot in the dark for death by stereo?
I don't know. I'd have to talk with Candace about that because I've never seen the video to that. So I mean, if it has horror elements in the video, sure. I mean, I love that song anyway. So if it, much like how his, I think we do have plans to do at least one Aussie song this season. I think we might be doing "Bark at the Moon," but I will go ahead and just, I guess, give everybody a heads up of what we are covering this week on this week's episode of Video Dead. And some people are probably not going to like it, depending on your taste in music, because it is a Backstreet Boys song, and it's the song "Everybody Rock Your Body," which in the video, the whole video that is definitely horror themed because it's like on Halloween, and they're like in this big haunted house, and they're like all the guys in that band are like dressed up like different monsters and stuff. So, and Candace is a big Backstreet Boys fan, and I actually like some of their music too. I mean, it might sound strange to some people because it's more of a girl fan base, but I like some of their songs. I'm just being honest. And I went with Candace several years ago to a Backstreet Boys concert. It was Backstreet Boys and New Kids on the Block in the same.
New Kids on the Block were my boy band when I was a kid.
But it was actually really fun. We had a lot of fun at that. So I like seeing Candace have a good time and everything too. So
Candace is back and she says, yes, Batman, it's already on the list. My mom suggested it. I believe it's going to be the 10th episode. So
okay. Yeah,
Candace is definitely thinking ahead.
Candace has already made out that list and everything, and I'm not even sure what I was on that list. I just come on there and we do it like out the. She said, well, we're watching this video, and I'm like, okay, sounds good.
She says it'll actually be the 13th episode for you guys. And I wanted to thank Batman for saying great live, guys. We appreciate it, Batman. And I can't believe we've still got 7 people in here when I saw Russell put that Dead Pit was doing something at 10. We still got people in here. They haven't all left. Usually it's like the lemming effect that somebody says Dead Pit and they go over to Dead Pit, which I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind.
What do you mean, TJ? I must have missed something. You said bands play their own instruments. Are you referring to like Backstreet Boys because
they don't play their own instruments?
No, they just sing. Yeah, well, I don't know what else to call them. I mean, they always called them boy bands back then. I mean, I don't know what else to call them.
I always called them boy bands. I always said New Kids on the Block was, my boy band, and because they were before Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. They're a group. Oh, okay.
All right. If you say so, buddy.
TJ has to be specific here. Well, I hate to get off here since Candace already got back on. She'll be like, dang, like they got off whenever I got back on. But
But
I get,
what have you got planned for the next Robert England? Everybody loves England.
oh, that's a good question. And I have my list out here. Hold on one sec here. Um, I will be doing Python from 2000, Wish You Were Dead from 2001, and Cold Sweat from 2002. And I haven't heard of any of those except Python.
And then I guess the show after that, you'll be coming back to Freddy again, right?
Well, there's a movie called Windfall, then Freddy versus Jason,
mm-hmm.
and something, I don't know if I can find this. I can't even pronounce it. It looks like it might be in Spanish or Italian or something.
Is it The Return of Cagliostro?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it says that The Return of Cagliostro is a 2003 Italian mockumentary comedy film.
That should be interesting. I hope I can find that one to watch.
It's like, have you ever seen that mockumentary called Brutal Massacre?
Oh, yes. I think I
love-
had that. I think I have it on DVD.
And it's got like everybody in, like Gunnar Hansen's in that, David Naughton, Kim
Yep,
Corey, all three
exactly.
ladies of the Evil Dead, Brian O'Halloran from like the Kevin Smith Clerks movies.
Yeah, that's the one I've got. Yeah, I haven't had it out
Yeah,
to
that's
watch
a
it.
great movie.
Yeah, TJ says early 2000s horror. Yikes. Yeah, we're including everything in here. Everything I can get my hands on, TJ.
That was some good early 2000s horror stuff. I mean, I don't think it was all necessarily like really bad. But like I mentioned earlier, I do like the Final Destination movies.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Freddy. I went and seen Freddy versus Jason in theaters like 3 or 4 times.
I didn't go. I didn't go but once, but I think I went with my cousin Jed that time.
It was just like, at least for our area, it was just a super fun movie to watch with a bunch of people in a theater.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially, like a lot of fans that were like longtime horror fans of both Freddy and Jason. So
the only thing that pisses me off about Freddy versus Jason is that Kane Hodder didn't get to play Jason.
Yeah, have you ever heard the story behind that?
I haven't heard, like, the last thing I heard Kane Hodder say was he didn't know why they did that, but it hurt his feelings really bad.
It did. He was really hurt by that because, like, this is the guy that they, that helped carry the last part of those Friday the 13th movies as Jason. He was Jason for 4 films in a row. He played Jason Voorhees. Yeah. And to a lot of people, he's looked at as their favorite Jason Voorhees.
I know he is for me.
That's why Kane Hodder, to this day, I mean, that man's been doing probably conventions for 30-some years. But, no matter what show you go to, he's always going to have a huge line because, he has a huge fan base of people that love it. I know you said he's your favorite Jason, and he's my favorite as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like he fit that role, the way he moved and everything. Yeah. The way he would do the breathing, where he would like lift up and down, and like he was perfect.
And the stare and all of that,
And he just, like I said, he helped carry, the last few films of that franchise, and. They had been wanting to do that for years, the whole Freddy versus Jason thing. It's just that the studios never could agree to put it together. But when they finally did, he was pretty much expecting to be asked to come and play Jason in the film. But they chose one of his buddies instead, which
Ken Kersinger, yeah.
Yeah, who's he has plays a part as a chef. He's a little small cameo in Jason Hates Manhattan.
Yeah, that's right.
But that because I think Kane was kind of the one that helped Ken get into like stunt work and stuff.
I think he did.
So yeah, definitely Kane Hodder was super hurt by that. He's went into more in a few interviews. Seems like he did talk about it a little bit in the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, but I can't remember. I know I've seen him talk about it at some point before, but yeah, that's it. I would agree. If I did have to pick something out about Freddy versus Jason that I disliked, it would probably be the fact that Kane Hodder didn't play Jason. Yeah.
So I'm looking at what Batman says they didn't want to pay him, I think. I'm sure Kane Hodder would have worked with them on that. And TJ says, unfortunately, the studio didn't think Hodder was a big star at the time, Freddy versus Jason. But was Ken Kersinger?
Ken Kersinger? Yeah, I mean, I would think that Kane
I'm not
Hodder
saying anything against what you said, TJ. I'm just saying that just doesn't make a lot of sense if that's what they did.
If that was their reasoning, then that's a bullshit reason. I'm sorry. Because Kane Hodder had already been established as like the Jason at that point. That was their go-to guy. And I mean, what had Ken Kersinger do? But like before, I mean, I'm not. What was there has to be some kind of weird reason that we've not got like the full story.
He says Google said that the production team didn't want him to break his leg and hold up production. What the heck? And Batman also said, he probably wanted to have too much input on how Jason should do things. Well, he should have input on how Jason should do things. He was really the only guy that played Jason multiple times.
Robert Englund had a lot of input on how he portrayed that character in Freddy vs. Jason. So that just feels like there was something that went on that we don't know about, and there was some kind of issue that maybe someone working on the film had an issue with Kane Hodder. His personal reasons. I don't know. I mean, it's a weird situation to me.
The way Kane Hodder tells the story, they gave him the script and everything and led him to believe, this is what's really shitty about it. They led him to believe that he was going to be playing Jason. Yeah, you're going to be, why would you give somebody the script if you didn't intend on them, being able to see the stunts and stuff like that?
And if you want to go even further with it, then, in Jason Goes to Hell, Kane Hodder is technically the only person to play both Freddy and Jason.
Yeah, exactly. And in Jason Goes to Hell, you see him without the mask on, without any makeup on.
Yeah. I mean, and
he plays three characters technically.
Which I didn't know that at the time when I first initially watched Jason Goes to Hell. I didn't know what Kane Hodder looked like.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Kane Hodder looked like that he was the guy that played Jason Voorhees until I started going to conventions. I was not. I was like, wait, I know I've seen this guy, and I knew I had seen him like in Wishmaster, and I knew I had seen him in like he has a little small cameo in Ghoulies 3, and there's like other stuff that I had recognized him from, but it wasn't until I started going to conventions I realized that he was the guy that played Jason in those as well, in the Friday the 13th films.
Well, TJ, I get that too. You say my point is he wasn't a star, so they didn't care. Not that Kurz had any status. Like for a while, Paramount used to treat their horror series like crap. But to let him think that he was going to be playing Jason again, that he was going to step into that mask again, so to speak, and he was going to do that role just as he had always done for the last few years, and then to pull the rug out from under him, I just think that's That's a load of crap.
Yeah, and like, maybe he wasn't a star in some of like those big studios eyes, the way how they they would see stars, and like that time, I guess, when a lot of the big stars were just kind of like newer generation type at the time that Freddy versus Jason came out. Like, and maybe that's what they wanted to do. I mean, I'm not sure what the age difference is between Ken Kirzinger and Kane Hodder is, but like I said, if that was their reasoning that he wasn't a star, then I just don't buy that, because Ken Kirzinger's wasn't a star either, but they knew what kind of portrayal that Kane Hodder
Kane
did
Hodder
in the
had a
past.
following at that point.
Yeah, at that, and they knew what kind of performance he would give. But so it just has to be something personal that that's all I can think of, is that somebody just that was making Freddy versus Jason didn't like how Kane Hodder performed as Jason, so they wanted to go with something different. It also maybe something to do with size too. I don't know, because I know Ken Kirzinger is a bigger guy than Kane Hodder. So maybe they were going based off of that. Maybe they just wanted to make it look like, because when they were putting when they were putting up Jason Voorhees up against Freddy and Freddy versus Jason, they wanted to have Jason tower over Freddy,
right?
Almost. So I don't know. There's got to be some unknown reason that we've not been made aware of. I would love to know, but there's always that chance that we will never know.
Right. But guys and gals, I have loved all the discussion, like before, during, after, as always. But we've been on here a little bit over 3 hours, so.
Oh wow! I didn't realize.
And this gal's got to do a couple of things, and then I got to try to get some rest, because I'm still dealing, unfortunately, with the residual effects of my horrible day at work on Monday. So, but I loved, hanging out with Chris and Candace and you guys and gals in the chat. Yeah, TJ, I get that too. What happened to Eric Stoltz and Back to the Future?
Well,
but
that happened for a good reason. I believe. I just don't see.
I love Eric Stoltz, but I'm telling you, Michael J. Fox was the right person.
Yeah, I can't see in that. I can't see Back to the Future working as good with Eric Stoltz. I mean, like, I'm not putting him down in any way, but I just feel like that chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd was something you can't match.
Oh yeah, well, it's your house too, Candace. You can come in that room anytime you feel like it. She's like, thanks for letting me visit.
I'm just gonna put a sign on the door that says "Keep out, Candace."
Yeah,
Candace not allowed in here.
No, seriously though, Candace, I love when you come in on these streams. And you could have stayed, if you didn't have to go back to your mom's, I would have loved for you to have stayed on there a little bit longer. But anyway, I guess we'll tie this up, and y'all be sure to tune in for the second Apples and Oranges show tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Candace telling you to hush.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's going to be a battle after when
That's
Candace
right.
gets back home.
We're gonna have a battle of the game Karate Fighters or something, or Hungry Hippos or something.
There you go. But anyway, I want to thank Chris and Candace for being on here with me tonight. I want to thank everybody in the chat that hung out with us tonight. And yeah, be sure to tune in tomorrow night. It's going to be epic, unless
it's going to be fun and interesting.
Unless Uncle Bill does like he does with Dead Pit sometimes and turns his back on the fans and no shows.
Yeah.
Then we'll have to be upset with him.
Turned his back on the fans, as always.
Candace says she's going to win.
She probably will. He usually beats me at games and stuff. So.
I suck at games. Steve would definitely beat me at a game. But anyway, we're going to skedaddle on out of here for now. But as always, I want to remind everybody to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And we'll see everybody next time. So good night, everybody. Get some
All
sleep.
right. Have a good night,
You
everyone.
piece of chicken. There you go. I'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.